Peace. What it do?
LA's most terrifying band. They don't need anything. Unadorned power. Circle jerk.
Wild. 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 Wild in the streets. Wild in the streets. Wild in the streets. Wild in the streets. In the heat of the summer, better call out a plumber. Turn on the steam cock, cool me off with your big crowd fighters and your newspaper writers. Still need a drugstore to kill my buzz. Wild in the streets, running, running. Wild in the streets, running, running. Wild in the streets, running, running. Wild in the streets. 64 valiant, handful of Valiums, couple of beers really do me right. You better believe us, better trust us. Teenage giant, walking rap, wild. 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 Running. Wild. Wild in the streets, running, running. Wild in the streets, running, running. Wild in the streets, running, running. Wild in the streets. Got a gang called the Wolves, you have to choose. Play with the boys, you're bound to lose. Bottle in one hand, can in the other. Don't fool around, cause they're real mean mother. Wild. 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 Running, running. Wild. Running, running. Wild. Mrs. America, how's your favorite son? Do you care just what he's done? No! Wild in the streets, running, running. Wild in the streets, running, running. Wild in the streets, running, running. Wild in the streets. Wild in the streets, running wild in the streets. Running wild in the streets. We're running wild in the streets. Running wild in the streets. We're running wild in the streets. Running wild in the streets. We're running wild in the streets.
Circle jerk.
What have we become? United in hate. When did we become a divided state? Don't hate me because I'm not like you. Don't hate me, it's just a point of view. When did we become divided by hate? What have we done? Divided state. Don't hate me because I'm not like you.
Well, goddamn, I'm happy to see you. This is the New York Hardcore Chronicles live once again. Yeah, that week flew by, didn't it? Time flies. Time flies when you're having fun. Sukowski, what's happening, buddy? How are you? Ray Hogan, what do you say? All right, coming out of the woodwork. What's up, Philip? Got a great show today. Got a good feeling about today's show today. It's going to be good. Fabrizio, Fach, what's happening, buddy? Chico, what do you say? Chris Hoffman, my man. All right, the gang's all here. Poorly pork chops. All right. How can we lose with the stuff that we use? You know what I'm saying? Very, very good. What's up, Hags? What do you say, buddy? Spiky, what's up? Fort Wayne. It's snowing in Fort Wayne? It used to snow in New York City. It doesn't snow here anymore. You know? Not sure. Used to be big snowstorms here in New York when I was growing up. Doesn't fucking snow anymore. Denmark in the house. In the house. What's up, Jacob? Is that right, John? Slapshot in Leeds Friday night. Yeah, man. Slapshot brings it, man. Slapshot's great live, for sure. Okay, Larry Kelly's listening as he's driving. Okay. Do you listen or do you watch on the screen as you drive? Blizzard is 78. Yeah. Yep. All right. Let's move it on down the line. What do you say? Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls of all ages, Stephen Messina.
Hello.
Hello.
Don't jinx it. I don't want it to snow.
It doesn't fucking snow. Every fucking winter, I put the shovel in the car trunk and I don't fucking use it. Like during the summer, it goes in Mark Levine's basement in Rockaway. I have a closet. just so everybody knows, I have a closet in the basement of Mark Levine's house out of Rockaway Beach.
So you have a shovel to dig you're parking your car out of the lot, right?
So I put the shovel in the closet there for the summer and for spring, summer, and fall. And then I'm like, am I even and I put it in the trunk and I never fucking use it.
Could be worse.
What's in the closet? I'll tell you what's in the closet.
What's in the box?
Well, it's an interesting closet because since Hurricane Sandy, Mark Levine's house in Rockaway is the house his grandmother used to have that he has, where we used to stay as kids. So there was a guest room in the basement where I used to sleep over. When I used to sleep over there as a kid, the basement's there, but it's gutted now. It's just empty, but there's a closet there, and I have stuff in the closet. It's just all bullshit, just shit that if it fell into the ocean, I probably wouldn't even remember. But mostly records and just T-shirts and just crap that I can't have in my apartment, stuff like that. So, Lou knows. Astoria Lou knows. All the Antidote LPs that we did, the boxes of Antidote records Anyway. Hey, listen, Thomas, slow your roll, bro. The dude's not even on the show yet. Ask Joe if he knows about the. Slow down, Thomas. It's a slow burn here, brother. Don't get so ahead of yourselves. There'll be plenty of time to ask our guest some questions. Thank you, brother. I got you. There's going to be plenty of time for that. That said, let's do photo of the day, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls of all ages. Wrong answers only, please. Photo of the day. Yay, yay. There you go. Photo of the day. What do we got here? Anybody? Wrong answers only, please. Listen, you know what I want to say? Is it the Eagles? I'm telling you, is it the Eagles? Is it Wishbone Ash? Is it Spinal Tap?
Mahogany Rush.
Is it Mahogany? Yeah, that dude kind of looks like Frank Marino.
Frank Marino.
A good one. Yo, Jerry Lang, Poison Idea, good one, bro. Is it Molly Hackett? Good one, Jerry. Is it the Allman Brothers? Is it Generation Kill?
Hey, Paulie Puck.
Yo, good one. Two winners, right? Is it Kansas? Is it Foghat? Good one, bro. Uriah Heep. Actually, I saw Uriah Heep, I don't know, a couple years ago, and they were great.
I saw them with Priest. They played, yeah.
Uriah Heep, yo, I can't front on Uriah Heep. They're great,
Actually, it was Deep Purple and Uriah Heep. That was a great show.
All right, listen, this one's going to give it away. All right? Is it Deep Purple? Is it Boston? Is it the Eagles? Listen, I'm going to kind of give it away with this one. Boom. There you go. And it kind of ties in with what we played in the beginning, right?
Yeah, a few years later.
Anybody? Does anybody know what band this is? Right answers only, please. Here's another band shot. Another band shot. Here you go. Is it oof? Is it oof? Oof. Is it oof? Is it off? Is it off? Is it off? LOL. Is it Iron Butterfly? Good one. In a Gata Davida. Is it Typo? as in like a typo, like an error, like a grammatical error. Is it typo negative? Is it Charles Manson? Is it Bobby and the Midnights? All right. Obviously, yes, it is. Yes, Pat Baldwin, it is off.
It is off.
Get off. Go ahead.
What I love about the name that they chose is, for anyone with a good memory from our youth, off was the other bug spray aside from Black Flag.
That's right.
You know,
that's right. You had Black Flag bug spray and you had off, which I actually commented on recently, is a genius of marketing name when it comes to the product. It's like, we have this bug spray. What should we call it? Off.
Exactly.
Fucking A.
And this was from La Poussin Rouge in New York City, July 2019. And what I love about this band, especially at this point, is that is Steve McDonald on bass from Red Cross. He was in off for.
Mike LaRoche was right. I thought I didn't realize that he was serious. Huh.
Yeah, no, that is Steve McDonald, and he was in the band for the first few records. He has since left because he does double duty with Red Cross and the Melvins as well. And but he's great. Now, I'm a huge Red Cross fan and a huge Black Flag fan. So having Keith Morris and him together, which was awesome. And also the guitar player was in a band called the Burning Brides, which put out a really good record years ago.
I remember them, yeah.
And so this band was great. I haven't seen off since Steve left, but you know, I mean, you know what you're getting with Keith Morris, and didn't
we almost land Steve McDonald for the show?
We tried, and we were in contact, but again, he was in 3 different bands at the time, and it was impossible to nail down.
Right.
But I would love to get a McDonald Brothers show.
Listen, everybody comes on this show sooner or later.
We'll get you. We'll get you if we haven't gotten you yet.
Now, I don't know and there's some big bangers in the cooker right now.
Yeah, oh my God. 300 episodes in, and we're just getting started. You know?
All right. What else going on?
You know, big holiday weekend. You know?
What else going on?
Thanksgiving. All that. How was your Thanksgiving?
It was all right. Whatever, man. You know, like, I'm not a big holidays person, you know, Thanksgiving, Christmas, you know, like, you know, it was all right, man.
Yeah.
Whatever with Thanksgiving. It's a chance to get together, you know, with people, your family, whatever, you know.
How was the SSD thing? I saw you posted some pictures from that. That had to be cool.
Yeah, we're going to talk about that with today's guest, and we also have Jamie Sharappa from SSD coming on. So we're gonna do a deep dive into that. But just as a prelude, it was incredible. It was big. It turned out to be a really big day for me. I ended up interviewing them for this Trust Records documentary, and it was totally unexpected. It was something I never thought I was going to do in my lifetime. And it was really special. It meant a lot to me. So it was great.
Now we just got to get him to do the Bowery Electric.
All right. Hey, I'll talk to you in a bit.
I'll be right here.
All right. Take care. Well, there you have it. This is the one, the only, often imitated, never duplicated. Clank your chains and count your change. The New York Hardcore Chronicles Live. And we are sponsored by New York Hardcore Comics, The Organic Grill, The Texas Silver Rush, DTFM Vinyl Distro, Generation Records, 126 Hardcore Clothing, and, believe it or not, let me get my angle right, Upstate Records. They're a New York-based DIY independent metal and hardcore label founded in 2017. They broke into the scene with their inaugural 26-band compilation, and since then have churned it out. Close to 100 releases in their brief 5-year history. With such notable artists as Leeway, NYHC, Sub-Zero, Brick by Brick, Fury of 5 as part of their roster, they maintain a focus on elevating upcoming artists that have the work ethic to take their music to the next level. Upstate Records also has an extensive collection of distro items from labels around the world and recently penned an exclusive distribution partnership with Century Media. Check them out at www.upstaterecordsnewyork.com. That said, let's bring our guest on. Let's clear the deck. Make sure nobody's killing each other in the chat room. Everything good. You know, I wasn't going to mention this on the show, but I see people are bringing it up in the chat room. Rest in peace, Jordy Walker from Killing Joke. I heard he passed away this morning. Rest in peace. We love Killing Joke. We just had Youth on the show, so rest in peace. There you go. And yes, we've had Choke on the show. So that said, let's get it on. Today's guest is a musician and label owner hailing from Huntington Beach, California. As a musician, he's known for his work with the bands Ignite, The Killing Flame, Winds of Promise, and Triggerman. He's a co-founder of the hardcore punk reissue label Trust Records, which has recently been responsible for painstakingly curated reissues by Circle Jerks, 7 Seconds, DFL, Aggression, Youth Brigade, and of course, just last week, the iconic SSD Control album, which is very near and dear to my heart, The Kids Will Have Their Say. Please welcome, coming at us from lovely downtown Los Angeles, Mr. Joe Nelson. Buddy.
What's happening? How are you, bud? What's going on?
I'm good.
It's actually about the Killing Joke, dude, man. That's just a bummer to hear. I love Killing Joke. What a band.
Yeah. They're great. And we just had the bass player on, we just did a deep dive with him like 2 weeks ago. And I watched the documentary, and they're a very unique band,
Yeah. Punk. Yeah. Like real punk,
Yeah. They were up. They were up there.
Yep.
That said, let's kind of jump into it. We got a lot to cover and have some fun today, I know you're a West Coast dude. How did you come up? Did you grow up in a musical household? Where and what was your upbringing?
Yeah. So born in Huntington Beach, raised in a town next to it called Fountain Valley. Not from a musical household. Well, my parents are, they're not baby boomers, but the generation right after or right before that. So the music they listened to was like 60s doo-wop. But what happened was in the neighborhood I was in was a band called Shattered Faith. And Shattered Faith was a punk band from my area. And when punk kind of started breaking in around us in 80, 81, like I was just 10, 11, but we knew about it because of punk rock. And I just, I was in the same shit everyone else was as a kid growing up, like, Queen and Led Zeppelin and shit. And then somehow finding Black Flag and TSOL and Social Distortion. Those are the first bands I really discovered outside like the Clash.
Was this stuff like you say TSOL and Black Flag, but I mean, how is that on a youngster's radar screen in that neighborhood? Like, did you see flyers? Like, I know this shit wasn't on the radio, right?
Well, I think what it was, there was a couple things. There was this band Shattered Faith. So you would see these dudes in your neighborhood, and like the bass player Shattered Faith, a guy named Bobby Tittle, his sister babysat me. That's how close of a neighborhood.
Oh, there you go.
They were the kids. And then for some reason, the backyard parties in our neighborhood, there was either this rockabilly scene that was happening at the time. So either rockabilly parties or they were punk rock parties. And that's how we found it. But it just got, yes, it wasn't mainstream, but there was just something, maybe the mystery of it, because, and it was so localized. And I know that's how it is in New York, but like, adolescence, like the first time you heard the Adolescents, you're like, holy shit, this is about like our neighborhood. It's about where Orange County. Sure. So there was kind of that tribalism to it that was enticing.
Sure. And it's kids our age, basically,
Yeah. And it, like I said, like how it is, you discover shit. Like the first time someone told me to record Rodney on the Rock, which is the famous station out, famous DJ out here, and he would play punk rock, but I couldn't stay up that late. I would just wake up, hit play and record on my tape player and go to sleep. Sure. And the next minute I'd have that tape, or and just like that's a gateway. Like you found Agent Orange and all these punk bands through that too. And and then I was kind of in the nihilistic side of the punk rock shit. Like I went to the first show I ever went to, the first concert I ever went to was Black Flag at Perkins Palace.
Woo!
Which was the My War tour. So I missed Dukowski, but like I didn't know. I just was stoked to go to a show, and I went up with like 8 guys in a pickup truck, back of a pickup bed from Orange County to Pasadena. Like, that was a fucking dangerous drive.
Were the Black Flag shows still explosive at that point?
That show was, for
Yeah.
sure. That was just the beginning. I don't want to say the end, because I do have a lot of love for the later day stuff, but like that was the beginning of that transition. That it never got bigger. It got smaller every year. The last time I saw Black Flag, I mean, they played to a half-empty club, you know.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, you know, in retrospect, there's a lot of that. You know, a lot of bands like that. Looking back, people think it was just, you know, massive crowds all the time. I saw the Misfits. I saw the Misfits through like a half-empty room, you know, with 75 people in 1983 or whatever it was. You know. But,
yeah, I mean, I will say this: the LA scene was pretty big, because the clubs like the Olympic and Fenders, those are the 2 main clubs I went to. I mean, those were 2,000 to 3,000, 2,000 to probably 2,500 people packed into Fenders. So
that's big. Fenders Ballroom. Where was that?
It was in Long Beach, so it's in downtown Long Beach, which in the 80s was just a fucking war zone. Yeah, it was like no place you would go. Like my parents, I grew up in the suburbs, so my mom and my parents divorced when I was young. My mom had no clue what I was doing. You know, I'd be like, I go to the movies, you know, going to a punk rock show always.
Hey, I grew up in a similar household. I was on my own at a young age, you know. It was I'm going out with my friends.
Yeah, man. I will say this about the journey, which is kind of important musically. It's like, so I got into like this punk rock, the nihilistic kind of stuff, the TSOLs and social distortions. And I got into like kind of drugs and drinking at a young age, like a junior high age. And then got kicked out of a school, went to a junior high in Huntington Beach called The Wire, and ran into some kids who were into minor threat, were into straight edge. And that changed my programming for 5 or 6 years, where I was a straight edge hardcore kid in Orange County from all through the 80s.
So that sort of opened up that gateway, minor threat, straight edge, and then you became kind of a straight edge dude.
Yeah. I became a straight edge dude. My father was a terrible alcoholic. And so there was this weird relationship with alcohol, too immature to understand it properly, but a band like Minor Threat and then SSD, getting that just gave a kid like me self-esteem. And I was like, holy shit, I got these cool fucking dudes somewhere out there that are guys I want to be like. Like, who doesn't want to be like Al Baril or Ian Mackay when they're freaking 13, you know?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. There was a lot of good that came out of that straight edge movement, you know.
Yeah, and some bad. I mean, there's some bad.
For sure.
Yeah.
I mean, for me, it was always a little. I don't want to say weird, because nothing's weird anymore. But having sort of been around for the first wave, to have been around when the song came out, and and it was okay. It's another song on the 7-inch, you know, and then kind of see it get momentum and sort of, you know, pick up passengers along the way and turn into like a real, you know, movement.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like the thing that once we started really coming of age, which was I'm 53. So like around 15, 16, there's a band called Uniform Choice that started in my neighborhood.
That's Pat Dubar, right?
Pat Dubar. They became huge influence, because then you had a real crew. You know what I mean? Like, we got our straight edge crew. We got the Dubar family. We got the handful of 20 straight edge kids who lived in Orange County. And that became, I mean, we're literally trying to carbon copy the Boston crew. You know what I mean? Which is like, but now we're these guys, you know, like.
That's legit. Yeah. We've never talked about that on the show, that like, because I've never had anyone from that band on the show. We've never really talked about, like, I guess the West Coast equivalent of sort of Minor Threat, straight SSD, Uniform Choice in Southern California.
Yeah, they were the shit. They lasted. It was explosive for a couple of years, and then they went through a transition. But I will say this: so where I was going to, when Youth of the Day came through our town, and we finally met those guys. I know you're having Ray on. Like we met Ray and Purcell, and at that time it was Mike Judge and Richie and Craig were the band. That connection that just solidified all of it, because then you were like, we have a kinship with dudes from all around the country. And Youth of the Day was like the straight edge version of Black Flag at the time, right? They were just going through town and making a straight edge scene almost, because they were impactful. They were such a great live band, and they were so suburban in their vibe. It just spoke to guys.
And they were kids that were your age.
Yeah, and they were. And then once Walter was in the band, like Walter and Sam, then those guys became like Walter and Sam are like two of my dearest friends. I've known them since youth of the day, you know.
Now I know you went on to go out on the road with Walter and instead. But before we sort of make that jump, just any unsung heroes from that early sort of Huntington, scene, and anybody that you remember that sort of never got their just desserts, or a band that perhaps was like, man, I thought they were going to be huge, you know?
I will say this, man, the band that you look back on with a lot of like a band that speaks to what you're saying is a band called Hard Stance that was from Irvine. Hard Stance was Zach De La Rocha's first band, the Hayworth brothers. Sure. It's a hardcore band. I think Zach was the mouthpiece, wrote the lyrics. Sure. They were so tight live, but they just didn't have, they were just kids. So they never really got it. They never toured. They put out a 7-inch. That's really not the band. I mean, it's got some great songs, but they were a really unsung, underappreciated band. They never was more than first or second on the bill. You know, there's a lot of bands like that. Like that band Starlight 13, I know they're well known. That band is phenomenal. Like that when they would play, that was another band that they were always kind of in the below part of the bill. You'd be like, fuck, Starlight 13 is so good. But I would say this now that I'm thinking, the band that really is underappreciated and is one of the greatest bands to come out of our music scene is a band called MIA.
MIA.
Had a guy named Mike Conley singing. He's no longer with us. They put out a record on Alternative Tentacles called Murder in a Foreign Place. And then they got a little bit kind of TSOL Beneath the Shadows, but in a real good way. Like, and I like that TSOL record too. But I'm
a big fan of that record now.
Yeah, but they just did that kind of vibe with the keys, kind of like that punk rock chords, but these keys on it, so it's not quite The Cure, and it's definitely not Minor Threat, you know. So that band, especially in Orange County, anyone who saw that band was like, dude, MIA was such a great live band.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, Paul Stone says no for an answer gets lost in the shuffle, and MIA, absolutely.
Yeah. No for an answers was fuck. They were another band, good friends, and that's they put out a great 7-inch and a really cool record, I think.
So you connect with these guys, the youth of today guys. They're kids your age. I know you fell in with Quicksand. Fill us in on sort of like how that came to be.
Yeah, so obviously I fell in love with music, right? So I'm a hardcore kid through and through. All I do is skateboard, surf, play basketball, sort of go to school and go to hardcore shows. I always wanted to tour. Instead is a band from Anaheim, which is up the street, and they were real close to us. So they were one of our stage bands. Where Youth of Day is a little bit older. God, I mean Youth of Day, Uniform Choice is a little bit older. The Instead guys, No for an Answer guys are kind of our age. I mean, we're talking like 3 or 4 years, but when you're a teenager, that's a huge age gap, right? Instead was one of those bands, and I was lucky enough to go on 2 of their national tours. The first one being 1989, and that tour was so fun because Gorilla Biscuits was out. I want to say Judge was out, Bold was out, Underdog was out, Uniform Choice, Reason to Believe, SNFU was out, and so you just around the country having the time of your life at 19 in the summer.
This was like literally some get in the van shit, right?
Oh, get in the van. It says 7 guys in a van. Yeah, but I think we pride ourselves on the Instead van because we really worked on it. It had windows. Like we didn't have like the stories you'll hear from like SSD and Youth of the Day where it's like, wait, we had no windows. Like we had windows. We built a proper loft. It was a pretty well-oiled machine at that point. Like I was a roadie, and then I would sell T-shirts. And a guy named Chris Finn, who's gone to be a really well-known tour manager. Tour manages Bob Weir now. He was a tour manager.
Is that right?
I mean, Chris Finn, he's legit.
So what's his name?
Chris Finn. He was
Finn, so interestingly enough, just as a sidebar, interestingly enough, a kid that came up in the New York hardcore scene, Chris Shiruki, who ended up getting into the Grateful Dead camp and tour managing basically for Bob Weir. He passed away a couple years ago. God rest his soul. But our New York hardcore buddy, Chris Shiruki, was tour managing for Bob Weir. So I guess Bob Weir has a penchant for falling in with these hardcore guys.
Hardcore kids. And I think they might have toured together for a second too, because Chris Shizuki, that's a name that sounds familiar. So
Chris ended up production managing like the whole shebang,
Yeah. But those early tours, I mean, you've toured, like it's so fun when you're a kid and you're just that first Instead tour was 6 weeks long. And like I said, a lot of those shows were like Gorilla Biscuits or SNFU or Uniform Choice, your homies.
Yeah, and RS says with no cell phones.
Definitely no cell phones. You had to do that. I mean, we still do the calling card trick that everyone knows where you have the numbers.
Yeah, we always laugh about that, man.
Still did that. You had like a thing, you had like a tone thing that sometimes worked where you could hit it. And it would,
that thing.
You know it. You know it, True Stone.
No, what was the name of that thing? Someone had there's a name of it. It'll
I
come
forget.
up in the
but it would click on the dial tone and then you can make a call. And then you go, obviously, you go to parties. I mean, it's so shitty to do, but I just remember that if you could go to like someone's house party and then you just go take the phone, call your friends back in California from some poor dude's house. Oh my God.
Bro, what's happening? Freaking. I think it's called freaking. Yeah.
But those are the tours. And I always wanted to do bands and I just was so in love with the scene at that time. Like I was all in, man, you know.
A phone
just
freak.
With myself to go to
phone freak.
Go to college this semester, or should I go with instead? You know, I would go with instead.
And instead, how does that fold into going out with Wally and Quicksand?
So, like I said, Walter and I became dear friends when he was with Youth of the Day. So we really just clicked as friends. And he was always trying to get me out of gorilla business. One of my big regrets is I was going on tour with Instead in '91. And I think I was going to tour manage then because Chris couldn't do it. So I was tour managing, which I was like, yeah, I'm a tour manager now. You know, and we're going.
I'm working my way up the ladder.
I'm not a road yet anymore, tour manager. So we're going out on the road, and Walter calls me. He goes, "Don't go with Instead. Come with Gorilla Biscuits to Europe." And I'm like, I can't do that, dude. Like I already promised Kevin. The guy's like, oh, come on, you know, Walter. He's just doing the Walter hustle, like. Right. You want to go in with Brian Foister in Buffalo, or do you want to be in a castle in Dublin with me?
But what he really means is, or do you want to sleep in squats and eat dog shit?
But that tour, I think, is pretty legendary. That tour, anyway,
isn't that the GB isn't that the squat tour, right? When they did all the squats and everything. Yeah.
Anyway, the point is through our friendship, he was always. I think what happened when Quicksand got signed, and they started doing this tour. The first tour I went out with them was Anthrax White Zombie. I think they had a tour budget, and Walter, he had Charlie Garriga, who is a competent guitar tech, but I think he just wanted a buddy. Like, well, I think he wanted. So that's how a lot of these bands that transition to major labels. Their first road crew is always their friends because they're like, all right, we're all coming together. So he gave me it's such a funny story, man. Like I'm not a musician. I mean, I can play the guitar now. At the time I couldn't change a guitar string. I didn't care. I was the bass tech and the drum tech, which I could do the drums. I didn't know Sergio Vega at all. So I fly into the Anthrax show. The first show is in Minneapolis, White Zombie fly, and I see Sergio. And he goes, here's my equipment and stuff. I'm like, oh, okay. If you just want to show me how to change the bass strings, I just got to see it one time. If you show me one time, I'll get it from there. And he's just like, what? You're the bass tech. You don't know how to change the bass strings? Oh, he's a rad. Obviously, it was fine. But it just was one of those moments like, oh, yeah, I'm not a professional tech. I'm Walter's friend. So I'm on this tour. But I was with those guys all through that Slip tour and some of the great. I mean, it was amazing. Rage Against the Machine tour,
that was a really watershed moment, and also here we are right now looking back on Slip, right? I mean, a really
what a great reissue,
great reissue, and the book that came with it, and you know, people that love Quicksand love Quicksand.
Yeah, they do, and it's interesting. Like that new record they put out, I think they're some of their best stuff. It might not seem like a Quicksand record to people, but Walter's a talented songwriter, man. Like. One of the best. And so, but to your point, it was so special, Drew, because you're like with your buddies, and Quicksand was happening. It wasn't like Quicksand was, 1,500, 2,000 people in a big city at that time. And Rage Against the Machine is obviously coming up. So to be on that tour with Zach, who's like a lifelong friend, and then Walter, and you're just like watching these dudes making it. It just was what was the special time.
What was the lineup again?
It was that tour was Rage Against the Machine, Quicksand, and then the opener was a band called Stanford Prison Experiment, which is from LA, but then they switched out for State of the Nation, which was kind of a Fugazi-ish type band that was in Salt Lake City.
That must have been exciting because I remember, I think I saw a show on that tour. It might have been, maybe it was Wetlands, maybe, but
Roseland maybe for that one.
But Rage was just ascending at that point, you know?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. The first time I saw Rage Against the Machine was their first show. They played a house party in Huntington Beach. They played 6 songs or 7. One of them was Clampdown. And I remember, because I was such an Inside Out fan, which is Zach's previous band, right? And I remember when he told me he joined this band, or he started this band, Rage Against the Machine, I was like, what a terrible fucking name. You're going to be in a band called Rage Against the Machine? Like, Inside Out's done. Inside Out's the greatest band ever. Like, what are you doing? The first time I saw him, I saw Morello for the first time. And I just saw Zach doing this thing he does. I said to my buddy Pete Berg, who's a hardcore dude, and he'll testify on my behalf, I said, this is going to be one of the biggest bands in the world based on that first show. You could tell the magic those dudes had in that setting in front of 50 dudes. You're like, holy shit,
that right?
This is incredible. Oh, yeah. Incredible. And then within a year, they were signed. I mean, they went to the LA circuit and 50 people. Next time there's 100 people. Then there's 200 people. Then it's 500.
Well, I gotta say also that record was just outstanding. I mean, they put out a record that just kicked ass from the opening note to the last note. You know, all killer, no filler. That first Rage record was incredibly powerful. It was a great record.
I agree. And so, yeah, special time. But I was always in the struggle of college and what I'm doing. And I can't just be a roadie. And you know, so I was never committed to enough of anything in my life at that point. So eventually I kind of dropped off the touring and finished school kind of stuff and got a job or whatever.
Yeah. What's up, Ryan Bland from Ake? Yeah. Rage Against the Machine, Quicksand. That you know what's fucked up? What's crazy? I filmed that show, and for years I had it on VHS because I think the opening band was one of Todd Youth's bands. I think it was called Shine in Time Station, and he asked me to come and shoot it. So I brought the VHS camera, the whole bit, and I shot all the bands. I had the Rage Against the Machine show on VHS from Wetlands for years. Somehow it just disappeared. But
I had a video camera. I filmed so many shows that I just never thought about it. I just lend out tapes. I mean, every time Fugazi came through, I filmed them for the first several years. Like, all that shit's gone. Sucks. It's just like, all right, hindsight's 2020.
Yeah.
Now I'm doing now I do this archivist reissue label. I could use some of that shit.
I know. Right? I feel your pain. I'm a documentary filmmaker, and it's just like,
You of all people, like, what are you doing? That's
here's something crazy. I'm working on this biohazard doc, and I'm looking for some footage. So I get on YouTube and I find the footage that I shot in 1992 on YouTube. Now, I don't have the tape anymore of the master, but somebody dubbed
Someone
it.
has it.
It's a generate, you know, it's a dub of a dub. Oh, there's my show from L'Amour's New Year's Eve, 92, 93. Yeah, I'll put some of this in the film. After all, it is my tape.
Yes, good. Well, that happens to me too. Like, there's a website that my buddy Brian Balchek runs called Come Join Friends. And sometimes that'll have stuff, or Sonny from Hate 56. Like, sometimes, like, I'll be, is that my Far Side show I shot? Maybe it's. Yeah, but some of that stuff's mine anyway.
Yeah, but matter. we love Sonny. He's
a sweetheart.
He's the dude.
He is a documentarian of epic proportions, man.
He is.
That is something special he's doing with that site.
I'm a big fan. So you go to college, you know, I guess college is happening. How do you get involved with Ignite? I know that you're literally like Ignite's first singer. Give us some perspective on that, please.
So all the time when I'm telling these stories about touring, I'm also in a band called Triggerman that I started with a guy named Gavin. Well, I didn't start it; I joined it.
Right, a guy named Gavin came first. I'm sorry.
Gavin Oglesby, who was the guitar player for No for an Answer and Carrie Nation, he started a band called Triggerman that was going to be more of like a Dag Nasty, melodic type of hardcore that I was really a huge fan of. Yeah, there I am, and I couldn't sing very well, but I had a real passion for it. And I was really good at structuring melodies, but I didn't have a great voice. But that was kind of that band. And then Ignite.
Well, before we, what was sort of the shelf life of? I'm sorry, I skipped that.
Triggerman?
Inadvertently. What was the shelf life of Triggerman? Like Dead Like Me was the release, right?
Dead Like Me was our only real album we put out at that moment in time. Now it exists as like a project. I record records with Gavin and Derek O'Brien from Social Distortion, Brett Rasmus from Ignite on bass. We record as Triggerman. We've done 2 records in recent days or recent years, right? But back then when it was an active band, it was like, you know, like I was saying, wasn't committing to anything in enough. Like Triggerman was a band we practiced twice a week, played shows, didn't really ever go on tour. I would have to quit it for 6 months at a time because I'd be on the road with Quicksand.
Right.
Like none of those dudes were. Gavin was going to art school. Like it was kind of like almost like a high school band in its spirit because no one was committed to it enough.
Right.
And so but within that kind of time frame, I was approached by Joe Foster from Ignite to start a band. Like he was jamming with Brett and a drummer, and they wanted me to sing. And I was under the impression it was going to be like a hardcore 7-inch, like a throwback. Like, and I was like, that'll be fun. This is like 93. I go, this will be really fun. We'll just write these hardcore songs. So we did that for 6 months, but then they wanted to do it as a full-time band. And I was like, dude, I'm not going to be in a 23 years old, man. I'm not going to be in a hardcore band. Like, you know what I mean? Like, that's crazy. Like, I'm going to go into Quicksand and go to college. Like,
did Quicksand gain traction right out of the gate?
Quicksand? Well, yeah. Because
Excuse me. No, I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Did
Ignite?
Did Ignite? Yeah.
No,
No.
it did not.
No.
Because this is pretty funny. So this is
Okay.
actually, so Triggerman had its complications live. We weren't looking back at it. We should have been more visual with like some sort of projections or something, but we were kind of stiff live. And it was a weird time in music where you're playing with the Strifes and these other outspoken bands that are coming up. So it's like we never fit in. We fit in more with these bands like Sensefield, and like we played a show with Unwound. I think we played with Green Day, but we were what we were. We weren't a powerful live band. So I was like, we're going to do a fucking hardcore band, like Youth of the Day style. And we were going to come out and kick everyone's ass. And we did a couple shows, tune-up shows that were, you know, fine. But our first big show, like big warm out, 800 kids in the club, turn around, bust in the song, and everyone's just standing there. And I'm like, shit. Maybe it's me, you know, like it's not you guys, it's me. I'm the problem here. So it really needed Zoli in the band, you know, like I wasn't committed. Joe Foster and Brett Rasmussen, they were so committed to doing that as their thing. And I'm like, and that's why we're also good friends. I'm like, I can't do that. You should get a real singer. You should get somebody who's going to push this. And they found Zoli, and then they did what they did. I think they became very big in Europe almost immediately because they
I saw them in Europe. Sort of early on. Yeah. Here's a shot of you. Actually, this is an Ignite shot because I do recognize Brett with the bass.
Brett. So over the years, I always jump on stage and do like Ash Return or some of the songs I wrote. So I wrote most of probably like I would say a third of Call My Brothers or songs that I wrote. So I just jump on stage. That's all that was. It's that, judging by that interesting outfit I'm wearing, it's probably 2003, 2004.
Yeah, a little
yeah.
So this Ignite release has 2 singers on it. This is like sort of on Lost and Found, right? This is Did you like go into the recording studio with them?
So this is so great too. Because I recorded a demo we record demos really raw that looking back, that's a little embarrassing, but that was pretty popular in Orange County. It sold well. Anyway, so these guys had a guy named Randy Johnson who replaced me. And he was a really great musician, still is, sang for a band called Pushed Aside. It was a very cool hardcore band. That's another underrated hardcore band from Orange County. Anyway, long story short, he didn't want to do my songs. So they need 8 songs for this deal with Lost and Found that Foster had brokered. And so they only had 5. So they asked me if I would do 3. Well, I did 3, but then they had an acoustic song, which is the funniest shit ever. Me and Foster recorded that like as an afterthought. Like, yeah, we got this. We might as well make up a song. And then that became on the record too. And I have such a problem with that record because it's like, I had no idea what their plan was. I didn't really care about a legacy because I don't have one. You know what I mean? So I just like, yeah, whatever. You're my bro. Like, I'll help you. And then when I saw how it came out, I was like, this is so fucking cheesy and stupid. But they needed to go on tour, and so that's why they did it.
So looking back, there's not a lot of fond memories on that record.
No, I mean, looking back how my life progressed, like I would have stuck with Ignite. You know what I mean? Like I just didn't really have the belief in it. You know, I had been in the music scene the whole time. Joe Foster had after he was in Unity, which is a band from LA or from Orange County, he had quit. He was a professional model. Like he hadn't been around like hardcore in years. So like to him come back like 3 or 4 years later, it's all fresh and exciting. I was in this weird transition that everyone from my generation, like the Walters and the Zacks, we were transitioning into this other form of music, like this post-hardcore thing. Like, so that to me, it was like, I can't do 80s hardcore. I've grown up.
Well, it's an interesting concept, and I've come across it a couple times. You have people in bands that sort of stay the course, sick of it all. You know what I mean? It's like, this is what we are, this is what we do. We're not deviating from the plan much, and the true believers are going to stay on the bus with us.
Yeah,
and then go ahead.
No, it's being able to ride the valleys and the crests like properly. The Sigval guys do it. There's been lows. You just keep going, man. Like what happens with a lot of bands, and my point, I'm sorry to interrupt you, was when the going gets tough, like with Quicksand, when the second record's a little bit of a lull compared to the first, and it's over. Like they didn't have the foresight to like power through it. And I think Walter was like, I can just do another band. I've done these great bands.
Sick of it all record a third record that sort of was canned, and then they sort of went their own ways. Yeah.
But those dudes just like, you see Sick of It All in 2023, it's going to be the same show you saw in 1991, 93. And I don't mean that in a negative. I mean, like those dudes are bringing it. You know what I mean? Like it's a hardcore band.
That's from what I've seen. Yeah.
And I don't think anyone at the time thought that hardcore as a genre, a specific genre, was a sustainable way to be a professional musician. Like,
that's right.
Give it to Pete and Lou for making that a career, right? Like it's just so that's a forging through something that never been done before either. Sure, there's punk bands like Social Distortion that signed and were huge, but a hardcore band never was a moneymaker. Not at that level. Hey, I buy a house and have a family. This is what I do. I'm a professional musician. I'm sick of it all.
Yeah, they hung in. They hung in there, and it reminds you a little bit of Slayer. Like I remember, what's his name, Tom Araya. What's the next Slayer record going to sound like? He said it's going to sound like Slayer. You know what I mean? That's it. We do what we do, and there's peaks and valleys, but and you hang in there. Yeah. Mike DeJean says, "What's up, man?"
Yeah, what's up, Mike? That's love, dude.
So it's interesting how some bands sort of, stay true to the game and don't deviate much, and then you have other bands that sort of, do this, do that, and then come back to it 20 years later.
Yeah, that's true. And it's also finding like your comfort zone. Like Europe became such a hotbed for hardcore, especially American hardcore in the 90s. Yeah. You weren't getting those same shows in the States. That's a little bit of a mind fuck for especially American musicians. It's like, okay, I'm big in like Germany, but I'm not really big in my own country. Getting past that mentality, that goes a long way too. Because hey, man, if you're fucking big in Germany, that's great. That's a professional career.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, having been over there a lot in the 90s with Biohazard and even a band like Dog Eat Dog, who's huge over there.
Yeah.
They play their home. They play here, 75 people.
It's a lot of bands, but there's
a lot of bands like that. Hey, what's going on? I see Purcell in this shot with you here. What's going on here?
Yeah, so I think this is a show at Youth of the Day played. This looks like the Glass House in Pomona. What happened here is Ray had there was a pretty big gap between the barrier and where I'm standing on that barrier on the stage, and Ray had fallen and hurt his knee, so I jumped up and did some Youth of the Day songs with those dudes. I don't know what we're doing there. Probably Youth Crew. That would be one I would do, probably.
Yeah,
that's the greatest thing about Youth of the Day and all those bands. It was always fun being able to just like having like someone like Ray hand you the mic and you do like part of a song. You know what I mean? That goes a long way with the crowd when you really blend that crowd and freaking band thing together. Yeah, that's the lineup with Ken.
Is this Youth of Today or is this Shelter?
Yeah, no, I think that's Youth of the Day. I think that's on the same show.
Right,
because that's
I see Purcell's. I see the Purcell leg there on the right,
and then you can see that gap. Like I'm about ready to tear my knee too.
Yeah.
Anyway,
you're the next one to get hurt.
Those are my dudes, man. Like they have slept on my floors.
Yeah. So the hand plays out, and I'm trying to move things forward with your musical career.
Sure.
So after Ignite,
thank you for calling it that. Thank you for
Yeah.
calling it a musical career. I appreciate that.
Well, it is. I mean, it is. I know, know, you're kind of downplaying it, but Triggerman, Ignite, The Killing Flame, Winds of Promise. Tell us a little bit about The Killing Flame, which had multiple releases.
Yeah, that was fun. So that, like that, I kind of, like I said, I kind of burned out of playing that kind of music in my 20s. Then I was in a relationship, I got married, I had a real job, or I had a job, and I was really missing a creative outlet. And Joe Foster had just left Ignite and had these songs he was working on that he'd written, which was the first couple Killing Flame records. And I was like, okay, let's do a band together. The first lineup had Chris Lisk, Ed McCurdy, guy named PT on drums, but the lineup that really kind of, I guess that was our recording lineup. And then Steve Reddy, who was a lifelong friend, and Equal Vision was humming at the time. I sent him a demo we did, and he loved it. He goes, I want to put this out. And I was so flattered. I'm like, okay, awesome. So we got to do this. Yeah, we got to do this really cool record called Another Breath. And we worked hard on that record. Come out on Equal Vision. Then I was down to start touring and doing stuff. And of course, like always, Joe Foster, who's been my writing partner, some stuff, he quit. He quit the band. He got upset at, like, I don't know, whatever the drama was. He quit. Yeah. So then we were like, and he was a selling point kind of in the band, because at the time he'd just come from Ignite, which was at its, pretty, I wouldn't say it's its peak, but it was up there. Sure. So that was a selling point for the band. And we were like, there already been a pressure. Like, it's so funny. There's alternative press from, I think, year 2000 that has us as like the 58 most important band to watch, and like Muse is in there and Coldplay. Ooh. And like at the drive-in, the Killing Flames in there too as a band to keep your eye out for. But I'm pretty proud of that record that we were on Equal Vision, because I know some, Pat Flynn from Have Heart and Fiddlehead has told me like that Killing Flame record is one of his favorite records. And so like when I hear that from guys who've done it to do great stuff, I'm a huge fan of his music. I'm like, cool, man, I'll take that. That's a success. Yep.
When he left Ignite, I thought, like, how's Ignite going to carry on without that guy? But they did, and they do, and they do.
They do, and they still carry on. Brett's a worker. I think that band went through the same kind of struggles that I just was outlining about only being big in Europe, not finding your home and ground in America. They didn't consistently tour enough. They didn't do the sick of it all agnostic front thing where you just grind it. So that kind of killed their momentum, because if they would have stuck to your point, like if you just power through it and do it, they would be still probably with that lineup and been doing well.
Is this the Killing Flame?
Yeah, that's the Killing Flame. That's Ed McCurdy, Foster in the middle, and Chris Lisk in that Live Wire shirt, and the guy in the black spot shirt is a guy named PT.
Yeah, Joe in the middle, right? Yeah,
Foster's in the middle. He's the leader. That's why he's in the middle. He's the leader of the band.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. That was fun, man. I was really excited about that. I think that record's pretty cool. And then the history of that band is he quit, the band broke up, and then like 2003, a guy named Cesar Copanez from Brazil calls me up and he goes, hey, I wish the Killing Flame was still together. I'd love to bring you to Brazil. I'm like, oh, the Killing Flame's still together. Tell me about the Brazil trip. And so
you're gonna pay for the flights and everything? Oh yeah.
Yeah, he was like bring you on a tour. Like, what? You got to make a record and you'll bring us to Brazil. It was so awesome. So that was the biggest thing I ever did, probably musically, is I did a 3-week tour in Brazil with the Killing Flame, a little bit of a different lineup than's on the record. I mean, I think I'm probably the only guy who was still in it, but we had a blast. Yeah. Played with the Lemonheads.
Yeah. Right. So the Killing Flame kind of plays out a little bit. Did you walk away from it for a minute before you did a little Winds of Promise? Or it seems like there's a little gap there. Fill me in on that.
Yeah. So I'm by now I'm like, I've fully invested in this music merchandising career that I did for 20 years. Right. So I'm in a real business, like where I can't be in bands that tour and stuff. Like they have to be like Weekend Warrior type stuff. Sure. So stuff like the Killing Flame, that's what I'm saying. The Triggerman thing became like a recording project that Gav and I've done like, every 8 or 9 years, we just make a record for fun. And then, but like Killing Flame kind of petered out after the Brazil thing. It was really only existed for that. And then what happened was several years ago, maybe like 6 years ago or 7, Joe Foster comes up to me and he's like, hey, would you want to hear some songs I've written? I really want to I'm doing this band. There was a band called Winds of Promise that existed. It was the guys from Unity. If you know anything about the recording history of Unity, they have a record called Blood Days. Those songs on there are really with this band called Winds of Promise songs. And that band was Pat Dubar, Joe Foster, Pat Longry, a guy named John Masterpolo on bass. That band existed. They don't think they played live, but they existed like in the late 80s, right? And they had a pretty cool little demo tape that people sent around. Anyway, he had gotten that band back together. So, but it was like, and I was like so intrigued because I'm like, are we going to do like Winds of Promise songs from Unity? Like, what do we do? He's like, no, we're just going to call it Winds of Promise, because I didn't want to step on Pat Dubar's toes. And this guy's like a brother to me. I'm like, I'm not going to be this dude.
Right.
But I was really,
I'm not playing the Pat Dubar role.
But I was really, like, And I listened to the songs, and I thought they were great. And Pat Longry was the drummer of Uniform Choice and the drummer of Unity. He was in the band. He'd never done a band since then. And he was a really good lyricist, and he'd already written a lot of the lyrics. And I was like, okay, like, this is kind of fun. I've never done this. Like, it's your band. You tell me what to do. And that's easy for me. Cause like I said, I'm busy. You're making it really easy. And we did this thing, and we went over to Europe and did like a 2-week tour, like 2018 or 2019. It was awesome. And I would love to do that band again. Like, but it gets hard because, like, you know, once the pandemic hit, we put out a record during the pandemic, which wasn't smart, you know, just kind of, so it just lost so much momentum. And you know how it is. You're in bands, dude. Like, it's when the momentum's gone, it's really hard to pick it up. It takes someone calling you going like, hey, you want to come to, you know, I need MAD to call me and go like, hey, you want to come over and play Berlin? And I'm like, all right, well, let's get the band back together.
Yeah. It's timing is a big part of what we do, you know,
for sure.
So just give us a quick background. You mentioned the merch thing. Tell us about, you know, because I think this plays heavy into Trust Records. You know, your tell us about sort of your roots in the merch game and how that came to be.
So where we're going with this is I did some odd jobs. I ended up working at Victory Records. So I moved to Chicago. Worked there for 6 months in 2001 when they had Thursday and Take It Back Sunday, or just being signed. Had a falling out with Tony, as people tend to do who work there. Quit, went through a divorce at the same time. So I was like miserable in the worst place you could possibly be. You know, people have been there. So you know that feeling. You're low, no prospects, no nothing. And I knew Rival Schools was going to Europe, and those guys are my homies. And so I hit up Walter and I said, hey man, like, and I'm not this guy to do these kind of favors. Can I come to Europe with you? And he's just like, I mean, we can't pay you, but you will, you know, pay your expenses. If you can, you know, buy your expenses, you're not going to make any money. But if you want to do it, and I'm like, absolutely want to do it. And that summer, 2002, I think, I mean, it just changed my whole life, you know? So it just changed it. And they were being managed by a guy named Ted Gardner, who's famous for Lollapalooza. He managed Jane's Addiction. He was on the back end of his career. He was managing them. Ted and I became great friends. So after that tour, he's like, why don't you go manage bands with me? And I managed this band called the Aquabats, which, you know, I managed this band called In a Way, a band called Briartone. Together we managed Brian Jonestown Massacre and Echo and the Bunnymen. So it was really, yeah. Oh, well, yeah. I did that for several years, but managing is very inconsistent. And Ted was he'd been so beaten up by the music business. I mean, the music business took this guy and just killed it, his soul, because he was one of those guys who was
just crushed him.
Yeah. Like, he was a salt of the earth type dude who may not have been the best manager at times. And he may not have been, but he was definitely an honest broker. And I definitely had his artists in mind. Right. He had to always, anyway. So it just was, the income was too inconsistent. And I got approached to work for a merchandise company that was owned by my buddy, Rob Dubar, Pat Dubar's youngest brother. Mm-hmm. We went and worked with him. And then I just did this music career of this merch career for about 20 years. Did you create was the merch company yours? Did you create it? No, it was Dubar's and Spike Xavier, who was famous from Mind Over 4. So they had partnered, and some other guys, this guy named Bill Fold, who works at Coachella, part owner of Coachella.
Sure.
It had a really good group of guys. But from there, we were just building this, and it was stressful. So, but I took that, I went and got a job at a company called Brothers that was Bon Jovi, Britney Spears, Lincoln. I know they don't have Linkin Park, but they had some big accounts. And then from there,
that's a strictly merchandise company, like
strictly merchandise, only
T-shirts,
merchandise.
just everything.
Yeah.
Merchandise company that makes the stuff, puts
Yeah.
their people on the road selling the merchandise.
Yeah. So like at that level, you're doing everything. You're doing the online store, the retail, the touring's where you're making all your money, and you're running all that. It's a it's a multi-billion-dollar industry. Like
Well, really interesting because I know some of the usual suspects. Winterland initially.
That's Blue Grape.
Blue Grape, whatever. But these companies exist, I'm sure, and probably really aggressive getting accounts. I mean, these are big time bands selling a lot of merch.
Yeah, and I went through. So I worked with everyone from Beyonce down to like, Rock from the Crypt or something. You know what I mean? I worked all kinds of bands, and at the very tail end of that career, I mean, I still do it, but like, I was biz dev guy. So I got into I was always trying to be an A&R guy, right? So I finally got to that. But you're signing bands to T-shirt deals, and that's. That was the top of the food. That for me was top of the food chain. And 1 year, the best year I had, I signed Leon Bridges, Run the Jewels, Phanogram.
Wow.
A couple other bands. Yeah. And this is where we're talking about hardcore. This is Run the Jewels. Everyone kind of probably knows what Run the Jewels is. They're being chased by every merchandise company in the world to sign. They're a huge merch band. And I'm at this meeting, and Killer Mike has a different manager than LP. LP's manager is a guy named Amici. And we're in this meeting, and Amici, we're talking about hardcore. Hardcore comes up, and we start talking about Discord Records and the ethics of Discord Records, right? And he's vibing he's like, oh yeah, and he goes, well, I'm from Michigan. Have you ever heard of Negative Approach? And I'm like, wait a second,
you think
you know Negative Approach, right? And so then we just get in this hardcore frequency talk. There's other people in the room who are just sitting there going like, the fuck are these dudes talking about? Afterwards, my company's all, I don't know what you guys were talking about. I'm like, oh, we got the deal. I guarantee it. We got the deal.
It's like one of those things. It's like one of those things like, yo, I was in that war. I was in that trench. Oh, you were you were 2 trenches over. You're my fucking dude. What are you talking about?
Yeah. Because if you meet a dude who knows Negative Approach in big music business world, you realize you're on the same frequency as a music fan. Like you realize if you came to this via someone like Negative Approach, you get it. Yeah. Like you're no bullshit. You're chasing something real because that's a real band. Yeah. So it was really, and that was kind of in the spark of all this. It was like, wow, man, hardcore is really, I started finding that in all my parts of life, I was always meeting someone who'd come up from hardcore out of a pretty powerful position in the business, like our guy, Matt Pincus, right? Obviously. I mean,
well, thank you for the segue there. Because let's get to the Trust Records thing. I'll take a break. We got Jamie from SSD Control we want to bring on. But so Matt Pincus, I'm assuming, from what you've told me, you developed a relationship. He was in Judge, right?
Yeah. We first met him in Judge. So Sam Sigler, who's a dear friend, and Matt Pincus, they grew up together. They're like childhood friends, right? And Matt was in Judge. We met him that way. He's obviously an awesome dude. But what we connected several times when he and Walter and Sam were doing Some Records, I managed a band called In a Way that signed to Some. And In a Way is a great band. You go on Spotify and listen to that record. It's just such a cool band and great musicians. And Ted and I managed them, and Matt put out the record. So we worked hand in hand on that record. And Matt was I could tell there, he was so willing to spend money on his bands, right? Like he was willing to go the extra mile for his band. So that really resonated me with there because I saw how well he was treating In a Way, who was not generating the sales to justify that kind of treatment.
Right.
And then we connected again as I was doing my merch biz. He had a company called Songs Publishing, which is a really huge independent publishing company that he had kind of taken from the ashes of Some Records and made this amazing world. And he wanted to do a nonprofit called Know Your Rights, and Know Your Rights is it was just something that if you were a hardcore musician or a punk musician, we would help register your stuff for free and administrate any publishing you had via Songs, his company. So we set that up and we worked on that.
Just interject it. And this is sort of early on in the streaming game too, where people didn't really know how to navigate that terrain, correct?
Yeah, that's right. Thank you. And that's what Matt had recognized. Matt recognized that hardcore musicians especially were not being serviced in any way, shape, or form, because the way streaming works is it's a money loser, but the only reason it's profitable is like 30% of the income's never claimed by anybody. It just comes in and they can use that to pay out higher royalties, say like a Taylor Swift or something, because fucking bands like, say, Antidote, I'm sure Antidote's buttoned up, but if some of these bands don't have their shit together, then the money just doesn't go anywhere. It doesn't point.
Right.
So that was Matt's kind of thinking. And within this, we started having all these conversations that eventually led to the genesis of Trust. Right. But that's where it really originated from.
And all right, so moving forward, you guys start with the concept of Trust. I know the first release was this, and I know I'm sort of fast tracking things a little bit here, but
it's okay.
I know this was the first release. I know it took a while. Give us a little background. I mean, you guys came out of the gate strong. Give us a little background on this.
Thank you. So this is so in our conversations about streaming and publishing, Matt and I noticed a real disconnect, Matt especially, that it's not even the publishing, it's the albums. At the time, Cro-Mag's Age of Coral was not available on streaming, was not on streaming. And we were like, how in the fuck are we going to live in a world without Age of Coral one day? Like if Age of Coral can't be on streaming services, it's gone because we're moving to a digital world. So like what happens? And you start having these philosophical conversations together, you know, like, how do you save that kind of music if there's no one else on the other side like doing anything? So we came with Trust Records. Originally it was, you know, it's gone through some different, you know, kind of business plans, but originally we talked about it being more of we were going to ask people to donate stuff to us, like their masters, and we would just administrate it from. Then it became, we realized that wasn't cool, you know, like that just was like, seemed like the most boring record label. And we were like, well, we should go buy masters. Matt's like, earlier, someone mentioned on the chat that, you know, there's this 1976 law about copyright reversions, right? Circle Jerks, this group Sex, had gone through it. So it's called the 203 Act. You can file after 35 years as an artist, as long as you have the majority of the artists in agreement, and get your masters back in North America. It doesn't apply for
dare I mention that that's sort of the Metallica loophole that they got all their stuff back, that same kind of
yeah. And that's how a lot of bands, X has gotten their masters back from Warner's. But it's not as easy as just, I mean, it takes some maneuvering because you have to go through the legal system. So in a conversation we talked to everyone from the Stern Brothers to everyone. We talked about buying the record labels or buying, you know, trying to partner with them. And I was asked to come consult with the Circle Jerks on merchandise because the Circle Jerks were going to relaunch the Circle Jerks. No one knew, and they wanted to do a robust merchandise program. And so they brought me in. I was consulting for free, and in that conversation, I learned that they got their masters back. And I was like, "Well, hey, man, like this is what me and Matt are doing." And I pitched it to what Trust Records was. Finally, at that time, what the conclusion came to was like, Trust Records is a preservation label, and what we want to do is take your masters. We want to reposition in the marketplace with money behind it to promote it, market it, do cool shit. So it's not just we're throwing stuff out there and hoping someone like will push it. Sure. And then the idea is we'll collect all this stuff. We'll build up this kind of canon of masters and try to do some sort of righteous pass off. What that is, we don't know. But the idea is we're not making a label for a profit. Matt's a pretty wealthy guy. He's able to fund this record label and allow us to kind of take some chances and maybe lose some money that doesn't apply back to the bands, right? So that's how it kind of was born. And pitching that to Keith Morris, he really loved it. Like they were going to license that record. So they were like looking for licensing deals. And we were like, what if we bought it? And then once Keith realized what that meant, it's like, it sounds so scary. You get your masters back, but we're not buying 100%. We're buying 51%, 49% still owned by you, and you're making 50 cents on the dollar from $1. All we're doing is paying a pretty good premium to buy into your thing. And then we're partners on this. We're only taking the 1% more because of administrative control, because we don't want to get into messes with bands and estates and stuff. We want things to be clean. And we want, as we move on, that, you know, if a member dies, the estate's buttoned up, someone in that state's getting his royalty checks, and so on and so on and so on. So
is it more of like a licensing agreement?
No, it's a purchase. So we buy 51%, and then go, because the only reason it's not licensing is because the purpose isn't to make money. Like we're not doing something to like, I mean, I want to make money for the bands, but the label runs pretty much as a nonprofit. We just don't want, we want to eventually try to donate all this to a museum space or a university space, perhaps to then caretake it like you would say like Folkways, a hardcore, or like our Folkways, which is the Smithsonian's folk label. Like we want to put hardcore into that kind of stream where it's looked at in America as like blues or jazz. So to do that, we have to own it. We have to own at least 1% more than you guys, than the artists, just because then you avoid the bullshit of like lawsuits and fighting. And so far it's worked out great. Like we got Circle Jerks, then we got BYO, we got a band called DFL. We have some others coming out next year that are
I mean, you did. I mean, I think Group Sex was first. 7 Seconds, The Crew was second, and then you did this. This was third, and I told you I revisited a lot of this stuff in doing. I mean, this one. I mean, these are all absolutely worthy of getting some, respect and the sort of great reissue that you guys did,
Thank you. Well, I mean, like the Wild the Streets is a perfect example. You kicked off your show with that music video. That's like all these great skaters doing 80s tricks. And that was filmed 2022 by Tiba Jefferson. I mean, it's a blast.
Yep.
And that's coming out. Yeah.
Yeah. So there you go.
I love that record.
I mean, so moving forward, let me take a sponsor break. And we'll come back and we'll bring on Jamie Sharappa from SSD, and we'll talk about the Kids Will Have Their Say reissue, okay?
Awesome.
See you in a minute. There you go. Poppin'. This is the New York Hardcore Chronicles Live. Our guest today is Joe Nelson. We got Jamie Sharappa from SSD Control coming up. We're going to talk about the Kids Will Have Their Say. We're going to take questions from around the world. Come on now.
What it do? Welcome to NYHC Comics at 117 Main Street, Dobbs, Surrey, New York. I'm Debo the Pro with my homie
Lee Farley.
Welcome to the spot. Oh, shit. Specializing in yesterday's and today's comic books, rare CGCs, toys, collectibles.
Got skateboards, old school tapes, Magic the Gathering, Warhammer,
video games, original art pieces by your favorite New York City and worldwide artists. Let's go. Skate decks all day, baby.
We also have the young reader section here for like 10 and under. Pops. People love the Pops.
Star Wars. We are New York Hardcore. We always rep the scene. Let's get it on.
Will that be cash or in debt?
Do you mean debit?
Yes. Sorry. Another eternally satisfied customer.
Hey guys, Vlad from Organic Grill. As you can see, we're in a new location on West 3rd Street, right by Blue Note and Comedy Central. The place is bigger, kitchen is bigger, we have more varieties, more food. We are looking forward to treat you guys with great dishes. All Hardcore Chronicles, welcome to Organic Grill. We are going to serve all the events as we usually do, and we are happy to see you guys.
Since 1992, Generation Records has been a mainstay of the New York metropolitan area music scene. Today, they offer a diverse selection of new and used rock, jazz, indie, hip-hop, punk, hardcore, metal, blues, soundtrack, and reggae LPs, as well as t-shirts, posters, and other merchandise. They buy used record collections and music memorabilia and will pay you top dollar for them. House calls made for large collections in the tri-state area. Call or email generationrecords@gmail.com and follow them on Facebook and Instagram.
And we're back. This is the New York Hardcore Chronicles Live. I want to mention a couple upcoming shows. 1 week from today, Johnny Santos from Spine Shank will be on the show with special guest Tommy Decker. These are some old friends of ours. Looking forward to having them on. Hey, if you had a band in a show like this, you do the same. Sunday, December 10th, Incendiary Device. Tristan DeGraves is going to be on. We've had him on before. Sean Brennan, Mike Flattery. We're going to have a couple special guests, including Chris Wren from Bridge 9 Records and Zum, who hasn't been on the show in a while. Johnny Temple from Girls Against Boys. Soulside Fake Names with Brian Baker and Akashic Books, co-hosted by Joel Gouston, is December 13th. Hey, here you go. Episode 300, Ray Capo. You asked for it, you got it. That's December 20th. December 27th, Mike from Channel 3 talking about his new book. We're going to do a show around the Extreme Music Awards that are happening up in Albany. We're going to bring the creator and a couple of presenters on, including Danny from Biohazard, Mark Rizzo, and Bob Riley. Sunday, January 7th, Glenn Cummings from Scatterbrain, Ludacris, and Stone Deep, co-hosted by our friend Howie Abrams. Mike Flintz from Riot will be on January 17th. Yo, Dickie Barrett will be on January 24th to talk about his new band, The Defiant. Pete Stahl from Scream and Woe. Scream has a new record out. This hasn't even been announced yet. Yo, Mike from I Hate God is coming on the show. So this will be very cool. So lots of great shows coming up. Lots of great shows. Imagine that. And I want to thank everybody that supports the show. This show absolutely could not happen without your support. I don't want to sound corny, but just, thanks for watching the show. Thanks for enjoying the show. What can I say? I mean, fucking couple years into this thing, and people love it and support it. If you would like to do the same, here is a Patreon page. Patreon is what really makes this thing happen. There's a $2 tier, a $5 tier. Jump in the game, you get lots of free shit. There's also a PayPal address if you want to make a donation. But there's also a super chat function, and I see Mike LaRoche says there's a super chat function with the show. If you have a question for our guest and you do the super chat thing, it comes through in color. I can't miss it. You go to the front of the line. Great show, Drew. When can we expect Incendiary Device in Boston? Yo, we just fucking played up there, man. Didn't we? What was that? We just played up there. But there'll be other ones. ID, the record's out, and all kinds of shows are getting booked. We're even talking about going over to Europe. So absolutely, right? Mike, I Hate God. It's on. Yeah, there you go. So that said, what else? I think we're good. We'll talk about upcoming events at the next break. Thank you. The record's great. We did a great record. Yeah, you know what? Out there, if you get a chance, it's streaming now on all streaming platforms. Bridge 9 put it out. There's vinyl that's available at Incendiary Device debut album pre-order at www.bridge9.com. Buy the records. Another way of supporting the show. Support the band. Support those that support you. That said, let's clear the deck. Yeah, Steve Racine, The Long Wait. What's up, brother? Yeah, we just played Bridge 8. No, we did not play Bridge 8. We played Bridge 9. So there you go. But yeah, we just played with H2O. But we'll be back. We will be back. That said, let's bring our guest back on. Joe Nelson from Trust Records. Hey, man.
What's up, dude?
Hey,
you got some good shows coming up, man.
Bro, there's a couple of I don't even know how to explain it. Like dream guests that I just can't announce it yet. But I just got a guy that's on the Mount Rushmore of American hardcore.
Okay.
And you
can't wait.
And you, motherfucker, who inspired me because you brought his name up at dinner the other night. Don't say his name because people are gonna. You mentioned his name a couple times, and I was like, you know what? I got to reach back out to him. And I reached back out to him and told him we had dinner and this and that and blah, blah, blah. He got right back to me, and it looks like it might happen. So,
I know who it is. I won't spoil it for you. But
don't spoil it. Don't spoil it.
I won't.
So that said, I want to bring Jamie from SSD on but I want you to set the table a little bit. And I know we're going to skip around. Let's do this a little bit so I can get Jamie on and give us a little background. How did this come about? How did this come on your radar screen? What was the Trust Records passion behind giving this the respectful release it always has deserved?
So what we just talked about earlier about how Matt and I were concerned about records not being available for future generations. This is the Mount Rushmore of those records. And it was obviously not available. And I don't know Al Barillo. I didn't. I know him well now. I didn't know him at the time. I only knew of reputation. And I hadn't approached him. We just kind of started the label. And he hit up Keith Morris and asked for my phone number. He saw what we did with Circle Jerks. And he was like, I want to talk to that guy. And he calls me or he texts me and goes, or DMs me, whatever. Can we talk? And I'm like, of course. And he goes, first thing he says to me is like, hey, how come you don't want to put out SSD on Trust? This is like 4 years ago. So this will take, you'll get it. So I'm like, of course you want to put it out. Like, it's like, are you kidding? And like, I didn't know you, whatever. Long story short, we just start talking. We put together a deal pretty fast for him. He doesn't like it. He rejects it. We still talk. We still keep talking. And like, we start developing a pretty cool friendship. And I, Al's a sports guy. I'm a sports guy. So I talk to him like once a week, weekly. Every now and then I put out a deal for him and he wasn't into it. And he was really, he's such a passionate human being. And he kept saying to me, like, SSD is worth more than what you're like you can't quantify SSD in terms of just sales. It's worth more than that. To what you and Matt are trying to do, SSD's worth more than that. And Matt and I behind the scenes are like, of course it's worth more than that. We if it was up to us, it'd be worth millions and millions of dollars. Like, it's not, we still have to run a business. How many can we sell? Like, no one knows. It hasn't been out. We go down the road, beginning of this year, Matt and I have a conversation. And I was like, you know what? I think we need to really give our best foot forward one more time to Al. We hadn't given him a deal in 6 months. We just kind of have a friendship now. And we talk about stuff. We don't ever talk about SSD anymore. We're just kind of past it. So I reached out to him one more time. I said, I'd really like to do this. And he agreed. And that started this move to get this stuff back on track. And actually that was the beginning of 2022. That's when we did that thing because anyway, long story short, I had to fly out to Boston and get these master tapes there's a Trust documentary. There's a Trust documentary that's just came out about preservation, and it'll show you the restoration went into those things.
So let me take advantage of this opportunity to bring on one of my oldest friends in the American hardcore game, a guy I've known since 1981. First hardcore band I ever saw was SSD Control. Jamie Sharappa. Hey, man.
Yeah, man. What's up? There he is.
How are you, buddy?
I'm good, man. Long time no see.
I see you all the time.
that was great.
Yeah. I'm trying to remember who you mentioned at dinner, Joe. I wasn't privy to that conversation.
Don't say it on the show. Don't do it. Don't jinx it. I'll talk to you privately. Don't fuck it up.
I hear you.
It was Larry Kelly. Fine. Everyone has to know it's Larry.
Listen, Larry Kelly would be the greatest guest. So
he would be.
So Jamie, just coming on in here, and I sort of interjected that Joe's talking about the tapes and coming up there and getting the tapes. Yeah. And Joe, correct me. This is the tape, right?
Oh, it's one of them. Yeah. I mean, look at that thing. The thing is destroyed. Yeah. It's literally destroyed. And
I
was going to throw them away.
In Al's mom's basement for a while, and I think there was like a flood or some obvious water damage. Yeah, the fact that you got those back to a usable form is miraculous.
I mean, it wasn't me. It's a guy named Dan Johnson from Audio Archiving Services he's a hardcore guy, and he sits in a professional life. So I was talking about earlier about this connection with hardcore people. He restores like jazz tapes, Miles Davis, like everything you could think of. He's the guy. He wanted to take a crack at those, but he even said to me, he's like, I don't think these will be salvageable. These are rusted together. The tape, but
I don't understand how it looks to me like the mold and rot is burned through them. I mean, are you telling me like the actual tape is still audible?
All of them are all of these tapes, and we had about 6. They're the multi-tracks, the thing that Jamie can testify. SSD recorded this record like several different times. So there's all kinds of these tapes. All of them were restored to 100% of what they were. Like I said, this guy is a pro. So he he did it by hand. He was taking like chemical solution and slowly breaking them apart, getting them. He had to clean them multiple times. And everyone's like, did he bake them? And it's like, no, man. Like at his level, you're not doing that. You're restoring them. And like,
there you go.
Yeah, like there's the brushes. I mean, he told me it took him months and months of just hand crafting, hand restoring these tapes to get it to where we could. Yeah, it is amazing.
Amazing. And then I just have to say that, when I listened to this, when you put it up digitally, it was mind blowing to me because my only recollection of this was, when I had the record as a teenager and you put it on, it was all crackles and pops and like to hear it so crystal clear was mind blowing.
Yeah. I think a lot of what Matt and I's mission with Trust is when these records were recorded, they're obviously, you guys are musicians and you've been recording, they're all lo-fi and you're all trying to cram in a bunch. And as you're trying to translate that into these digital streaming world, you can't just go from an old CD or an old tape. You have to remaster it for digital. Right. It's a different type of remastering. So our guy who remastered these things with Al.
And here it is. And this is it after he cleaned it up, right?
Yes. Yeah, it's it after he cleaned it up.
It's amazing.
Isn't that amazing? It's amazing.
It is. Jamie, Gary says, where has it been all these years?
Like I said, it was in Al's mom's basement for I don't know how many years. I don't know when Al recovered them and held on to them, realizing that they were shit. That he didn't think they'd ever be used or be usable. Yeah, they just kind of sat around in the basement.
It's amazing.
But
think about that's a piece of American history right there, man.
Sure,
like those are the tapes. So yeah,
absolutely. Jamie, your kind of thoughts on the Trust Records thing and seeing this thing coming out after a couple millennia?
It's been amazing. Way past my expectations. I mean, I'll be honest with you. Al and I had talked many years way back about putting this stuff out or whatever, and I was always of the belief that nobody gave a shit. I was always of the belief that just years down the road, if anybody who wanted it could get it somehow, some way. So I was pretty shocked to see the response. That first day of sales was crazy, man.
Crazy.
I was blown away.
We were shocked. I mean, we were shocked too. I mean, not pleasantly surprised, I should say.
Yeah.
Well,
everything about this relationship has been fantastic. I mean, I got no complaints whatsoever. Like I said, way beyond my expectations.
Yeah, it's been fun. I mean, I think the journey, I was telling someone, the journey of Al and I's friendship and working, and then, now Jamie and Chris and Spring are all part of this dialogue, and just to see where we started and where we came from and the things I've actually really learned from Al about marketing ideas and just the way an artist looks at their stuff, because every artist looks at their stuff differently. And the way Al treats his stuff is, I mean, the reason it exists, the reason it did so well, and we're all surprised, is because the way Al has stewarded that ship through the dark ages. Like, it's great he didn't release these. It's great this record never saw the light of day until the day, because when it did, it made a huge impact back in the marketplace that it would have had if it had just been like, in print 30 years ago.
Yeah.
That's what we talked about at dinner the other night, right, Jamie? It was it was said, in a way, it's kind of great that the thing was just off the table for 35 years, because now it's lovingly being restored and re-released. But honestly, Joe, I was thinking about this during the break. You and Matt Pincus, you're like the patron saints of like this. No, you are. You're like the patron saints of this piece of Americana that is historical and important.
Yeah, and thank you for saying that. It's Matt is such a great dude, and when we have this conversation, you've talked about my upbringing. His upbringing is different, but they're similar. He said to me, he's like, hardcore saved my life. Like hardcore saved my life, and it saved my life. And we both had music careers, and he just articulated this in such a thing that made so much sense. It's just like, I have some money. You have relationships with some of these people. You would know what to do. Why don't we partner and do this record label for these reasons that are all righteous to us? Like, this is not us. Hey, man, we got some records. Let's throw them out. This is us like trying to showcase this stuff, put it in a different lane so it sits in an art museum type space and not just like, hey, here's some music. It's like, no, this is fucking important to the American story. Like, we are part of this scene.
Yeah.
I don't want to pat ourselves on the back. That scene is so unique and special, and so much shit has come from it that we celebrate today. Fashion, movies, cultures, all been influenced by the stuff we were in and the stuff that happened in the cities with hip hop. That is the fucking truth.
It's all been absorbed into not just the Americana, but the worldwide lexicon.
Yeah,
stuff,
yeah.
You know, all this stuff, even the hardcore symbol, which I talked about in the New York hardcore, what the origin was. You see, like, everyone using that sort of motif of a hardcore, you know, the X, and it's the stuff that we were bouncing back and forth as teenagers, Jamie, is now part of this worldwide. It's incredible. It's incredible.
Yeah, you would have never thought it back then. I mean, we were just having a blast, you know, living our lives. So you didn't really appreciate the driving force it would be in all of our lives.
Yeah.
I mean, I never thought that, you know, 40 years later, I would still be, you know, associating with the people that were, you know, my best friends back then. Now they're still some of my best friends today. It's an amazing.
Yeah, it's been a real special on this one, especially, and I think it's been really nice to celebrate a release like this when you have all the members still living. And I'm not trying to be morbid, but that's always on our thought too. We just talked about the guy from Killing Joke dying, who's kicked off the show. It's like that's part of our thinking too. Is like we're going to start losing guys. We already have as we've been doing this. Like, and then so to be able to celebrate this record and have all the four of you guys and Francois, wherever he is, when we get to the next one, like that's special. You know, that's been a real. That there's a moment with this record where Matt and I we're texting each other, and we were just like, man, feels so good. This is kind of why we were doing this label. This is, you know, getting this record out and seeing the love it had, and to see like Jamie Stokes and Al Stokes and Spring Stokes and Chris, it's just been fucking rewarding, man. You know? Yeah.
And I'm sure you get to it, but you know, last Wednesday to see the reaction of the people was, I was blown away. When I walked in that store and saw those people, and I'm like, wow, they're here for SSD. It was mind blowing. Really special day.
It was.
Yeah,
I
agree.
It was such a Twilight Zone moment, sort of.
Yeah.
It was like I came up there, I drove up. It was like an SSD event on Newbury Street, and when we were teenagers, like you said, Jamie, why don't you paint the picture? Explain like what Newbury Street meant to us when we were teenagers.
Yeah, well, Newbury Comics was like the hub because there was no scene, you know, really early on. No place else that you got, you know, that kind of music early on. I mean, later on there would be Rocket Records and other stores, but that was like the meeting place. I can remember, you know, Al and I in the early days. I mean, we were just starting the band. You know, what we would do on a Saturday or Sunday would just go hang out in front of Newbury Comics and would flyer shows or whatever. I mean, they'd always be pissed off because, you know, it became like sort of like the meeting place for the Boston crew. Then eventually Kenmore Squarewood later on down the road. But it was, you know, Newbury Street in general, that street was flyered constantly. I mean, when there was a show, that was the street, the first street you hit up was Newbury Street.
And like you said, you wouldn't even call people on the phone. You would just, if it was a Friday night, that's where you go to Newbury. It wasn't like, hey, let me call Jamie. Yo, bro, you going down there today? No. If you had time, you'd go there. If you went there and there was 2 other people, that's who you hung out with. Yeah. If you went there on a Friday night and there was 15 of us, then so be it. You know? Yeah.
And then, you know, like John Anastas and Dave Smalley, and I'm sure a bunch of others worked there. So it was just another reason to go hang out. Because we're all, you know, all friends. Back then it was like every friend of mine was either in a band or starting a band, or, you know, everyone was involved in the scene in some way. Whether if you didn't play in a band, you did something. You did a fanzine or whatever it was. Yeah,
and to have this event on Newbury Street in Newbury Comics was just like I explained to my girlfriend. She's like, "You're doing what? You know, you're driving back and forth to Boston Wednesday." I'm like, I have to do this. This is
man.
Really,
Thank God you did.
This is really important to me. Like, these are my guys, you know. Here's a photo from the signing at Newbury Comics, and I love the banner. Where'd that? Banner
It's so good. Chris Wren did it. So this is great. Like I got there and I go, fuck, we don't have a banner. And I call Chris and I'm like, I got an idea. What if we did the Society System decontrol off the first flyer that you see or the Galleries flyer?
Yeah.
And so we changed the S's, but he literally put that together. It was so perfect. Look at you guys.
It was great.
Well, yeah, it was a great day, man.
It was great, and also a big moment for me, Joe, is I showed up sort of just to say hi to the guys, and I ended up interviewing them a little bit for this Trust Records doc, and man, that was big in my world. I want to thank you. That really that was really big for me, man.
I could tell it was emotional for everyone. I mean, this is kind of what I was talking about earlier about how all these dudes who are in our scene can contribute. They got talents, especially. And I just, we ran each other on the street, and I was like, oh, you should come and say hi to the guys. And then as we're kind of like, fuck, man, like I don't do this for a living. You do. I mean, you don't do this for a living, but you do it well. So I'm like, why don't you'll know the players, like you'll know where to go with this. We were on a time crunch. I mean, it was a little bit stressful day for me because we were just going through all this stuff, and I was like, Drew, why don't you just interview these dudes? We didn't really have any questions and
you gave me nothing. You gave me nothing.
Dude, I'm so sorry. I threw you to the wolves. Like, there you go, Drew. Shook you up in the bag and threw you in the river. No, but what's funny about this is, so we are making this. We have this docuseries we're making. The first one came out about preservation. It talks about the SSD tapes. It's really well done. It's a guy named Buddy Cohen who it's a company called Six Stair. They do skateboarding videos. They're most famous for a thing called Love Letters to Skateboarding. Yeah, look at you there. So then we're making this SSD one, and he flew out over the weekend and interviewed Jamie and Chris and Al separately and together, and then also I think he interviewed Dwayne and Nancy Burrell and Angie and like some of the players, key players of the SSD story. But he wasn't going to be in town when Springer was there.
Right.
And or when we were going to have this really special moment, we realized we'd have all four of these guys together, and we had to film something. I mean, this is what we're doing. This is like unprecedented. Right. So I had a whole bunch of questions for Springer. I got that out of the way. And then I looked at my thing. I got one question. He goes, make sure you ask the guys about Buff Hall, and then also make sure you just freestyle it. I'm like, fuck. Okay. I mean, I could do it, but it would be boring. And I figured he'd already captured a lot of what we're going to get. So it might be better to have you, Drew Stone, talk to the guys and figure out when the conversation starts going somewhere. You'll have the foresight and the know-how to steer everyone to this thing. And the interview was, I mean, I don't know how you felt about Jamie, but once it got going, I just never wanted to end. It just felt, just seeing the love between you guys in that room. Like, you don't see it, but you saw it there. Drew and I and Larry, who were in the room, we saw a lot of love between all.
That's the first time that the four of us have been together, and I don't know, man, probably 40 years at least. Yeah.
I mean, I think you probably came together for that American Hardcore documentary for something. I mean, there was some interviews there, but I don't know if you're.
No, not all four of us.
Not all four. So that's the first time since the band broke up that we had all four guys. Well, we should have started a little differently, because we just kind of like, I don't know, what do you want to ask, Drew? Should we ask this? And like, let's just go.
Listen, when it got up to speed, it was magic, man.
Yeah.
And I've been in the room, and I've interviewed everyone from Metallica to Cyndi Lauper to Johnny Lydon and everyone in between. And this one really, 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 really meant a lot to me, Joe. So thank you.
Oh, dude, it's my pleasure. I saw it in your face, dude. I looked over you a couple of times. I could just see it in your eyes that it was no joke for you. You were in it.
Well, it's funny because initially, like you said, Drew's like, "What? You don't have any questions?" And I could see a panic on his face. But,
because Drew's so prepared. Being on his show now, like, he's prepared, man. Like, he's done.
I'm all about preparation when I do interviews. Yeah. Like I really, really, I learned that from my dad. When I do interviews, I'm very, very, very prepared. And then even like when I do the show, I'm very prepared. And sometimes I never look at the paper. But the process of preparation, puts me in that sort of mindset. So,
well, I apologize. We didn't have any questions for you to ask, but you did great.
It worked out fine. It was great, man.
It was also one of those things too. Sorry to interrupt you, but it was like, it's such a, like, looking back at it, I'm just like, fuck, man. I think like the Newbury comic thing was great, but there was this moment where like, we should just talk to these guys as long as they want to want to talk.
Yeah.
We were on such a tight clock that day. Like, that's another thing. It's like, you know, and thank you to Anthony, to Wrench, the singer of 10 Yard Fight. He's the guy who filmed that for us. He came in on the fly, set up. It just went really well, man. It was
you know, and of course I want to thank Nancy Burrill and who's just a big part of it as well, and couldn't do it, you know, without her help.
Well, that's part of the story too. Like the book that she put together, how much art, it's so well done with the fill and flash photos and her insight to the band, and the oral history is great. It's just like that coming out, followed then by Kids Who Have Their Say. It was almost like a perfect storm of marketing in a way, and a lot of that's Al. That's Al. That's not even like it's Al was always, how's this going to work? Is it this book should come out and then we should, you know? So he was conscious of the overall thing for SSD, making sure the book comes out in this month, and then 3 months later the record comes out, and we kind of have this momentum train, and it worked.
You know, I gotta mention, like, in the world that we live in now, people I consider them fanatics, who guys like Tony Palmisano, like, I got every variant, I got the yellow one, the blue, and I'm just like, it's sort of mind-boggling to me. Like, I saw some guy post, you know, he has all three versions of it. I mean, it's what an incredible amount of passion behind this release, and people that just, you know, they want to have any piece of it possible. You know,
it's interesting, and we should acknowledge Brian Ray Turcotte, who's the guy who put together the re-release as far as taking the elements and making this pressing. It's like, that's a real talent, and he was the guy who kind of came up with the white cover, because Al was very animate that we just keep it pure, and we were too. We talked to some people, and everyone was kind of like, "Oh, you should keep this as pure to the original record as you can," because people don't have that in their collection. They just want that record. They don't want all the books. Nancy and the guys already put out a book. That's the SSD story. Like, we'll just put this out straight. And Brian's like, we should maybe do this white cover. We'll do a white cover with white, and it looks really cool. And I'm like, awesome. No idea that was going to be like, oh, now you can go buy for like $500 on Discogs or whatever I saw it go for. I just was like, we just made another collectible record for these fuckers. Like, we're trying to make it affordable for everyone.
Whenever someone tries to give me something like that, I'm like, you know, no, don't give it to me. No, give it. No, I can't have that. It's like, I can't hoard stuff anymore. I just don't, but I'm happy for people that have that passion, you know?
Yeah.
I
lost all my records in a radiator leak. I had a water radiator.
Oh shit.
So, most of them. But what are you gonna do?
Jamie, anything you want to add to this sort of momentous release, or just any perspective?
No, not really. I gotta say, I'm enjoying this interview, Joe. It was a great man.
I mean, thank you, Jamie, too. Like, that's the thing too. It's like, you know, everyone kind of knows Al's the kind of runs the show with this band. That takes some special people like Chris and Jamie and stuff to, like, you know, like, it's hard in a band to, like, okay, this is our guy. He's done it well. I mean, I will say this. I really, really enjoyed my time with Springer over this week. I don't know Springer. Obviously he's a flamboyant character, but me and him had just like I got him. Like, it's like, he's so, if you could just enjoy him for being who he is, it's like, this guy's one of the funniest dudes you'll ever meet, and super smart. Like, don't let his like thing fool you. That dude is freaking reading the room.
Yeah,
different people bring different things to the party, and that's what makes the whole.
Absolutely.
You know? And
we'll just, it must have been a trip. Sorry to interrupt you, Drew, but like being in a band with Spring and Al during the 80s, man, I just don't know how you guys made it even 4 or 5 years at times. Such strong personalities.
One thing I will say that I do remember, Jamie, from very early on, is we all agreed Chris Foley was the secret weapon.
Oh, absolutely. Without Chris, one of the greatest drummers in hardcore. He was amazing.
Yeah.
He was the one musical talent in that band.
It was like we're kind of monkeys here, but we get this guy.
You need that in hardcore, man. Like, if you think about these great records, like the Circle Jerks, Lucky Lair is such an insane drummer on those Circle Jerk records. He's got jazz, and Chris has got some of that same kind of jazz training that translates so interesting into hardcore. Like you lucked out with him. You look at like a guy like Mackie. Like Mackie's a freaking, beast. Like you have to have a good drummer. That'll at least keep it on the tracks.
Yeah.
Hey, just ask the Clash, Topper Headon, or the Guns N' Roses stuff with Steven Adler. Like to me, those guys make those. Steven Adler made Appetite for Destruction. Topper Headon made London Calling. Stuff like that. So,
yeah. Topper Headon's that's an underrated drummer, man.
That guy's yeah.
But then Al, maybe what Al ever lacked in talent, his drive and his vision for what this band was supposed to be, and the whole Boston scene. I mean, early on, him and I had many conversations. After when we went to Black Flag, we went to New York to see Black Flag, and we met all the DC guys, and that was like a turning point for us. I think I can remember Al and I driving home that day, talking about not drinking anymore, and how we wanted to start a scene that was like that, just a real tight knit bunch of people who traveled together and just always had each other's back. So. I give mad props to Al for everything.
For sure, dude. Well, to all you guys, I think the thing that's so fascinating about Straight Edge, and we're trying to kind of touch in this SSD thing we're doing, to talk about Straight Edge at its origins, which is Ian MacKay and then you guys. And like, that is a really political, radical thought of the time to be like, you know what? We're not drinking and doing drugs. Like we are rebelling against that, which in punk rock and hardcore was like kind of like part of the story. It's like sex, drugs, and rock and roll. Like, I mean, Sid Vicious was the poster child of the scene before the Americans got a hold of it and made fucking, Rollins say the poster child. Like it's really interesting to me, that mentality. And I said it earlier, like Straight Edge really saved my life when I needed someone like Al Baril and you guys in Boston to go like, well, these dudes look fucking cool. Like these dudes are cool. I'm like, I could fucking be Straight Edge and skateboard, and who's gonna tell me that fucking the Boston crew is a bunch of nerds or fucking the coolest dudes you'll ever see?
A lot of Jamie, I heard Yogi Berra talking about Don Larson's Perfect Game and how he, through his lifetime, he's met 1 million people that have claimed that they were at the Perfect Game, and I think it reminds me of, and he mentioned Rollins, and it just flashed in my head. There's a lot of people that claim that they were at A7, that when Black Flag played A7 and Dez said, hey, Hendry's got to get up tomorrow to work. We're going to give the mic. You were there.
I was there. Yeah. It was that was the Black Flag show. They played Irving Plaza. Then they were supposed to play, I believe it was the Mud Club afterwards. I remember Chuck coming up to it and saying, hey man, we're going to play another set tonight. You should come hang out with us. So we all go to the Mud Club. We get to the door, and they won't let anybody in. They won't let Black Flag in. They're saying, nah, you guys can't play. And then somebody, I think it was, someone told me it was Dee Detroit, who was like, every time I went to New York, I'd see her there. She said, oh, I know someplace you can play. And they went to the A7. Black Flag gets up, plays a set. It was probably 4 a.m, something like that. And like you say, Henry all of a sudden jumps up. They said, hey, Henry's going to get up and sing a song. And I think he sang Clocked In. Yeah. And I think Fix Me was the second song. He did 2 songs. And then he jumps off and he's gone. And then I remember Black Flag comes through town couple of months later, whatever it was, plays the channel, and Henry's singing for him. It was crazy.
Incredible.
It's so crazy. I mean, I only saw it in California. The Black Flag legacy is so interesting because the pre-Rollins Black Flag guys are so in their own headspace. I'm a Rollins guy, man. I only saw Rollins and Black Flag. You can't tell me that guy didn't fucking crush it as a front man.
I agree.
Well, things sort of get a little lost in the swirling sands of time. But just from my perspective, like being real big up on the early Discord 7 inches, SOA was a personal favorite. Like SOA was like the band that I started when I came back from the High and the Mighty was blueprinted on SOA and Negative Approach. So when the singer for SOA was announced that he was singing in Black Flag, and then Damage came out, Damage, when Damage came out, it was fucking it was incredible record. But Damage was an incredible record. I know things, you have that perspective now, but when that record came out, it was amazing.
It was a huge record. It was like, that's the first, like my introduction to Black Flag is Damage. Before I heard that before I heard the 7 inches, right? So
yeah. And it's funny you bring up SOA because I remember buying the SOA single off Henry that weekend.
Al tells that story too. Yeah.
After the Black Flag,
so cool.
He's like sitting out. I remember he's like sitting on a dumpster and he's got like a box of records and he's like, "Hey, buy this record. It's my band." And I remember buying it and I couldn't believe how good it was, man. I was blown away. That raspy, just like this, the whole sound was just this raspy sound. The guitar sounded raspy. His voice was raspy. It just sounded so powerful and so great.
It reminds me when I bought the Agnostic Front United Blood record from Vinny Stigma, and Joe, he had the covers on like a roll, and like it was like on one long roll, right? And he cut it off, folded it, taped it, put the record inside, and sold it to me for like $1.50.
Do you have that record today, Drew?
No, I don't. Listen, like I said before, I got rid of everything.
Yeah.
At a certain point, I decided like I would rather I wanted to have nothing. Like,
I feel you on
I had
that.
this mentality of I don't want anything, absolutely nothing. It's more painful for me to have a couple things than I enjoy going through this life at this stage of the game, not having any of this stuff. Like I derive pleasure in giving it to people that will cherish it. Yeah,
that's cool. It's righteous.
It's
come to peace with.
I live in a fucking studio apartment. I live in one room.
You're gonna do great on the Ray Capo interview with that mentality. You're gonna do real great on the spiritual quest.
Right. I live in a studio apartment, a rent-controlled studio apartment. I don't need this shit. That said,
that's the thing about those shows, man. So you guys saw some fucking cool shows. Jesus.
Yeah, we did.
A7. Fuck. So jealous.
Me and Jamie saw a couple, man, together. We saw a couple together. There was that one Minor Threat show. You guys didn't play this one. It was at Irving Plaza.
Right. Yeah,
was it Bad Brains, Minor Threat, and there was. You guys played one of them, but there was another one also.
Yeah, we played the one with Minor Threat and
MDC.
MDC, yeah. I think there was another Minor Threat that we went to. I don't recall who else played. Yeah,
and then there was the road trips we took down to DC. Some of those trips.
Amazing. Yeah. The one advantage being an old man, you got to see some cool shit back in the day.
Yeah. Hey, man, it's. Yeah. I wouldn't trade it for that. I wouldn't trade my experience for the world, and it wasn't always great, like.
I hear you. No.
And with you guys too. I mean, SSD. And I talked to someone the other day. I was just like, the stuff that came out between SSD and in 1982 and SSD in 2023. You can't name 90% of the artists that were on major labels and had songs on the charts and stuff. You wouldn't be able to name them. No, because it's not as impactful as the shit that you guys did and guys like Ian MacKay did. I mean, it's just really, once you kind of get through it and look back at it, and that only comes with age, wisdom, is you're like, holy shit, that is special. And that is something to like really celebrate.
Yeah.
Jamie, anybody you want to thank, shout out, anything like that? Oh, wait, before you go, we're looking forward to having you in New York, your new band, The Long Wait, with you and a couple of guys from Slapshot and tell us about the new band real quick.
2 years ago, Slapshot celebrated it was supposed to be their 35th anniversary, but COVID fucked that up for them. So it was actually, I think it was like year 37 for them. But they did this 2-day thing in Boston, and a bunch of, I don't know, I think it was Hank's idea to put this band together of all of the ex-members, because there's been a fucking 30 members or some shit. This crazy amount of people that have played in that band. And so that was sort of the start of it all. We got together and had this really fun day of a bunch of us all playing different songs and having guest singers get up and sing take the vocals. And after it was done, I remember me, Steve, and Mark looking at each other and going, "Man, this was so fun. We really shouldn't stop this." And so we just kept on going. Me and Steve and Mark did this put this band together. And then then it was split. We were going to have one singer. He didn't, he was too busy. Keith Bennett was going to originally sing for us, but he had other things going on. He was in a couple of other bands. So then we got Glenn, and we got Daryl Shepard, who we had known. He was actually, also a member of Slapshot previously. So yeah, it's been a blast, man. It's been really fun playing again.
Hey, Joe, do you know what do you know what the connection with two-way radio is?
No.
Two-way radio is Walter Schreifel's nephew and Glenn E. Friedman's son.
I do know it. I talked to Glenn E. Friedman about this. That Dylan Schreifel's kid and his kid are in it.
Yeah,
that's so cool, man. And they're pretty good.
Yeah, this is gonna be a great. This is gonna be another one of like what we just did. This is gonna be another start to finish packed out banger on the Bowery. You know, it's gonna be another great one. So that's
very
cool.
Yeah, man. Well, I say thanks to Joe and all the people at Trust. I mean, you guys, you did it right, man. I gotta say, exceeded expectations by a lot.
Yeah, I mean, it's been, like I said, we're all in this one together, man. And then, like, you know, Al's a special human being, and like had some. I mean, some of these ideas you see, those are his ideas. Like I said,
to know him is to love him, and it's been a love fest, man. This whole thing.
Yeah, it really has. It's been fun. And hey, man, we're not done yet, dude. We got Get It Away coming out next year.
Man. I'm looking forward to that.
Me too.
Hey, Jamie, thanks, man. I'll talk to you soon.
Man. Yeah, I'll talk to you later.
Hey, Jamie. There, dude.
There you go. Let me take my last quick sponsor break, and we'll come back and we'll take some questions from around the world. Are you on the clock at all? You got another 20 minutes?
Yeah, I'm good. I got another 20 minutes. Yeah, for sure.
All right, I'll see you in a minute. Well, there you go. Special guest Jamie Sharappa, Trust Records Joe Nelson. This is the New York Hardcore Chronicles Live. We are sponsored by blah, 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 and 126 Hardcore Clothing. They're a streetwear brand for restless individuals who don't compromise. They are about being positive, spontaneous, and true to yourself. For years, they experimented with several printing methods and materials and collaborated with a large number of designers and illustrators, always giving room for fresh perspectives while retaining the hardcore attitude. Get in touch with them. Ramp up your game at www.126clothing.com. Come on now. Speaking of Vinny Stigma, Joe Ramini, the Texas Silver Rush, is Vinny Stigma's cousin. They're a jewelry design firm and boutique store located in the birthplace of the Texas country music scene in Fredericksburg, Texas. They specialize in working with musicians in all music genres to design and create unique one-off pieces, as well as the style and for stage, album covers, promo photos, and social media exposure. Their client list includes Rock and Roll Hall of Famers Greg Rowley, Ringo Starr, and of course, Agnostic Front. Information and online sales are being taken at their Facebook and Instagram pages, and of course, www.texassilverrush.com. Just a couple of events coming up. I want to mention the Holiday Slamboree. All ages Sunday matinee at our home at the Bowery Electric. This is sponsored by New York Hardcore Comics and co-hosted by Women of the Pit, No Redeeming Social Value, Butterbrain, RB&X, Chumhuffer, and Toys. There's the latest flyer. There also is going to be a coat drive for Oasis Women's Shelter, I believe. We're getting the flyer together now. We'll talk about it on the shows leading up to it, but there is a coat drive for this as well for Oasis Women's Shelter. So we're getting that together, getting information for that now. So please come down, donate. It is a free show. I'm going to be up. ID is playing the Extreme Music Awards pre-party on January 12th at Empire Underground. We are actually getting out of the 5 boroughs of New York. The next night is the Extreme Music Awards 2024 show. This is a big event happening at Empire Live. Members of Slayer, Exodus, Overkill, Biohazard, Hatebreed, and so on and so forth. Sunday, January 24th, back at the Bowery Electric. Tension, Winterwolf, Redwoods, Mickey's Crew, and the Give Ups. And then, of course, we just mentioned The Long Wait, playing with non-residents, ID, Crazy Eddie, and Two-Way Radio. This has not been announced yet. You hear it here first. Tompkins Square Park, Saturday, May 25th. That is Memorial Day weekend in our beloved Tompkins Square Park. Rebelmatic, Incendiary Device, Non-Residents, a couple more to be announced. But this is, put it on your calendar, Memorial Day weekend in Tompkins Square Park. So there you go. Of course, the book is available at www.stonefilmsnyc.com. There's only 10 copies of Volume 1 left. If you are thinking, make your move, here it is, www.stonefilmsnyc.com. There's 10 copies of Volume 1 left. And that's going to be it after that. I'm not printing up any more. That said, I think I covered everything. A week from today, like I said, Johnny Santos from Spine Shank will be on the show. That said, let's bring any questions you have for Joe from Trust Records. Please post them up. Let's bring them back on. Hey, man.
What's up, man?
So there you go. Moving and grooving, bobbing and wheeling. Let's see. I don't want to put you in a bear trap, you know.
No, dude, and you don't know my friends. If any of my freaking friends are listening, like, there's some questions coming that. I feel
let's
it.
Start with this one from Paul Stone, who was instrumental in connecting us to do the show. Got to ask Joe for his favorite show ever in Cali, OC, and thank you for doing the show. Glad I made this happen.
Yeah, man, thanks.
I guess going back to your kind of golden era when you were coming up, was there something that really, in retrospect, resonates?
I mean, you went to shows. All those shows they're also sick. The Adolescence reunion was great. Fenders. Every time Bad Brains came through, you know, like, I mean, all those shows are just. I saw, like, I started going to shows in '84, so, and didn't stop for 10 years really. So, like, there's just so many, almost too many to name. But all those shows, like, you know, the Fenders ballroom scene in Long Beach was notoriously violent club,
right?
And part of that, it all bleeds together because I start thinking of these crazy fights and I'm like, who played that night that there, you know, there was like this chaos between the lads and the skinheads and stuff. But
sure.
All of it was great. All the early Uniform Choice shows that you could get to were great. Like that band in 1984 and 85 was just untouchable.
Here's something I want to touch on. You know, talking about the Trust Records catalog, and you know, I wouldn't call this an anomaly, but could you give us a little perspective on DFL and why was this an important reissue for Trust?
So this is interesting. So when we first started, Circle Jerks was our first signing, and then pretty immediately Greg put me in touch with Monty from DFL, and he's like, "Hey, Monty from DFL has his masters back and would like to put him out. Would you be interested?" And I'm like, maybe, because it doesn't sit in my wheelhouse. I know the band because Adrock's the bass player. It's one of the early things on Grand Royal. I think I had the 7-inch and I thought it was cool. But like, then I met Monty. We started talking and having this conversation. I was like, this would actually be really interesting because this is something that if you order this record through Trust, and we'll actually put this oral history up as a PDF on our site. The oral history of this band is really fascinating. It's these guys, Monty and Tom, they're from like the Germs era. They just got strung out on dope all through the 80s. And when they finally got clean, they got this band with Horowitz and like kind of were in this weird like East LA scene of like kind of hipsterish, and they're the hardcore band. And so it just felt like maybe Matt and I shouldn't be the gatekeepers of taste, right? So we should put this out and then that and make sure that we're always receptive to everything, because part of the scene that we're all part of is like all the bands are relevant. Like, you know, there's the bands we like more than others or might be more popular than others, but all the bands are relevant in the end. It's just the scene.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. And that's like something that I, even with this show, it's like, who cares what I like? You know, I'm like, it's sort of like a bit irrelevant. You know, it's like, if we're just doing about what I like and what I lived through, when I was passionate about, we would have done 50 shows and that would have been it. But you know, the experience of bringing new people on and meeting new people and you know, other people love this stuff. Other people love this artist, and that's and to have the vehicle to bring that to people is important.
Well, and that's the thing about DFL. It's been so fun. So you put that record came out, I think, in August, and some of the love or some of the people who've come at me through our socials and stuff, they were so excited about they discovered Trust now because of the DFL record, right? Like that was their record.
That's
so now they're, and I'm like, oh, this is cool. Like, and if you see the packaging, the way that thing, that's another Brian Ray Turcotte thing. It's just a really cool story. And I'm really proud of that record.
Cool.
Great guys.
Astoria Lou asks, the SSD hoodie in XL is sold out. Will you guys be restocking?
Yes, we will. I don't know when. Merch is a little tough with us because we don't sell a lot of, that's always my expertise. And like, we kind of put up what we know we can sell, and then when it's gone, we'll get another pressing of that hoodie. That new hoodie we put up is really, really good quality. So we will sometime probably in January. It'll be
because when I talk, I talked to Astoria Lou when I drove out of Boston after we had that dinner. I had a 2.5-hour conversation with them driving back to New York, and the hoodie thing came up, and I said, yeah, that's confusing. Why would you sell out on a hood? Isn't merchandise something you just keep printing?
Well, no, because I print like we got to meet minimums. There's a price point to it. I try to keep the cost low. So like when we put those SSD things out, we pre-ordered it a little bit. So that was like, and so I kind of gauge, okay. And then like what happened was it came out, there got to be some more momentum in the SSD than we anticipated sold out, but we'll get that back in. And we got to, like, those are the kind of things we kind of make. They're kind of break evens, right? Like we don't make really any money on merch. So we just have to be careful that we're not, when we first started the label, we just made way too much merch. We're like, great, I have merch, I'll just store it. And then we realized, like, what's the point of having 100 Circle Jerk shirts that are selling? Like that's just stupid. And same. So like we're more strategic, and we found it's kind of, we partner with the guy, one of our good friends, Sam Sigler. Like he's part of Trust's records as well. He works as like a marketing and branding guy. And we've kind of formulated this idea with merch is let's just do more like specialty, like drops of merch, and not, we'll have some evergreen stuff, meaning the stuff you can always get. But for the most part, when we focus on merch, let's just make them little like capsule collections and do, like, we just did a Fishbone merch drop.
I saw that.
Yeah.
I was like, that's interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. We did it last year with HR. Last year we did, Sam was like, we should celebrate HR's reggae legacy. Like, let's just do something with his reggae stuff. And so we love this story about HR because we all know him. I know him a little bit. So I reach out through his manager and we're like, hey, we wanted to celebrate your reggae stuff. Do you have, I had heard there was an unreleased HR song that through my guy, Dan Johnson, restores our tapes. He had said he restored an HR tape for HR that was from the 80s with a song no one ever heard. I go, what if we put out your merch and then we'll make a mix CD and we'll drop the new song on the mix CD, like a summer jam thing. He's like, great. That's so great. And then I did it. And I realized, wait, this isn't an old song. This isn't an old song. It's a brand new song. He's just like, it's just HR. He just tricked me. Did I lose you? Maybe my.
I'm sorry. That was me. I have fire trucks outside my window. So.
Oh, okay. So that was really funny. And then that was last year. And then we were like, that was really fun. Let's do something with Fishbone, because Fishbone's a band we all kind of love, and they're back together. And there's some, we reached out to their managers, a friend of mine, and also part of, knows our label really well. And we just did this fun little Fishbone capsule drop, and then we started talking about that maybe every summer we'll do something that's a little outside our box, but also kind of connected with just like a summer merch drop ship.
Gotcha. Dare I ask what's next for Trust Records?
So the next thing on our plate is that record, Starlight 13 in Control, that we were talking about. That was a record that Matt and I both really loved. And they were one of the bands we signed pretty early on. It's just taken a while to get the assets and to kind of put together. That comes out, and then we got to go right into SSD Get It Away. Like, we're kind of a little bit, like, I don't want to be alarmist. I'm a little bit sensitive to Al's health right now. I mean, we all know the guy's battling cancer, so I just want to make sure we want to maybe get that record out a little earlier than we had originally planned. Just not trying to be dramatic, but just like, let's get it out. You know what I mean? Like, and plus we got this momentum with SSD. So I think when we do this SSD doc, which will probably drop in February or March, maybe, that'll just kick into the SSD thing. And then we got 7 Seconds New In coming out. We have some pretty exciting, much like your secret guest. Like, we have some exciting stuff coming up. I can't tip my hat to yet. But there will be some surprises, and like, we're still trying to work out a deal with TSOL. Like, I mean, Jack and I have that's those first 3 records. I think that'll happen eventually. I think.
Yeah. Well,
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And also, like, it's not lost on us. Like, we want to get some more East Coast with our stuff. I mean, it's not supposed to be, it's been really, because of our BYO purchase and the Circle Jerks, it's really easy to think of us as a California label. And obviously I'm from here, and those are most of my contacts, but like, we're real sensitive. Like, we would love to do some New York stuff. Like, I've talked to the Cro-Mags. I've talked to Roger and Vinny. I mean, different conversations, but so like, we'd love to get some of that stuff out. I'd love to get some of the other Boston stuff out, like Slapshot and Negative FX, or, so we'll see. Like, I think you'll see next year us have 8 releases. This year, I think we had 4. So we'll double our releases next year. And then we'll kind of be it's time to, like, we kind of got this sorted and figured out how it's going to run now. It took a couple of years. And so now we can open up the spigot,
Well, it's nice. It's nice to hit an upper deck home run once in a while. Right. And
thank you.
The kids will have their say is just really,
thank you. Yeah.
Really.
Isn't that crazy? I mean, it's so, it's mind-boggling, but also well-deserved, the love that those guys have gotten.
Sean McNally says, Joe, thank you for realizing the importance of some of these quote-unquote founders in the hardcore scene. It's so important to see their legacy recorded and appreciated.
Yeah, well, thanks, Sean. I mean, that's, he's a dude who gets it. Like,
Sean was at the signing. I saw him in Boston.
Yeah, I saw him. Yeah. Sean and I talk about doing an event. I have this dream of doing like this kind of celebration of Boston hardcore. And we just couldn't really do it around this release. And I'm actually glad we did. And it was Al's idea to make it small and more personal at Newbury. I mean, that's all Al. This is a funny story about Al Burrell that you'll get and Sean will get and everyone in Boston will get. Is Newbury Comics, where we did this event, would not give us that Newbury Street location. Would not do it for pretty obvious reasons. It's small. Logistically, it's weird. They're trying to put us in the suburbs where they have more control of the scene. I understand all the reasons. All valid. Al is not accepting that at all. So I'm on this phone conversation with the Newbury people and our distributors trying to figure this out. And the last thing I say to him is like, look, before we go on the weekend, if we don't get the Newbury Street location, what is going to happen is, you don't know Al Burrell. I know him. He is going to go to Mike Dries, who's the owner of Newbury Comics, and he's going to make this happen. There's no way a guy like Mike Dries is going to disrespect SSD in Boston. Like, you don't understand what that would mean to the people who are in the Boston scene who really know, it'll be he'll be a pariah. He's not going to do it. No, you don't understand. I'm like, we'll see who doesn't understand.
Yeah.
Sure enough, Monday morning. All right. So I guess this guy Al talked to Mike. Trees. We're doing it at Newbury Street. And it was great. And that event was great. And
it's amazing. It's like Poseidon talk to Ares or whatever. It's like, I'm thinking back, Mike Dries and Al Burrell. I mean, and I remember those two. I have it in my mind's eye. I tell you, them standing talking inside the original Newbury Comics in 1981. Them, because Mike Dries was always very available and approachable. Like, he talked.
Yeah, he's a great guy. Yeah,
he talked to all us teenagers back then.
And I think that's what I think that's kind of lost, and no fault of anyone at Newbury Comics, right? I mean, these are why would you expect some middle manager at Newbury Comics? It's not just a one store; it's 30. They're not going to know what we know about the legacy and the history and the connection. And I'm just like, the minute this Al talks to Mike Dries, what's he going to say? Like, no, Al. Yeah. Of course he's going to let us have Newbury Street. Of course. Yeah. And it's good, because that's like in Al's mind, there had to be a full circle moment. If he wanted to be with his guys, he had vocalized to me, he wanted to be with his guys at least one more time. And that spring of Chris, Jamie, and himself, and be at Newbury. And it was fucking great.
Let me see. I see Steve. Hey, Steven, you want to come on? What are you doing?
Sure.
You got something to say for yourself?
I do. You know what? You inspired me to dig into my 7 inches and pull out my DFL 7-inch.
There it is. That's the original, dude. So the cover shot by Spike Jones. That's a Spike Jones photo on the cover. Yeah, man.
Well, Spike Jones did a bunch of those videos back then.
Yeah, he's part of that team. Well, that's what I found fascinating about that scene. It's like, okay, these are these creations. Like the Beastie Boys coming west is a huge thing on the scene in LA at that time, right? Like, so, and those guys always just seem to be the trendsetters. Are cool. So part of it's not lost. We're like, man, we would like to do something with Grand Royal. Like, we want to celebrate this, you know,
Yeah,
with
yeah.
Adam Horowitz. And then it's cool.
Absolutely. What else you got, Steven?
No, this has been a great.
That's
great,
it.
Just wanted to say thank you. You know, I haven't jumped on the end in a while, and I figured this was a great way to do that. I just really enjoyed this whole interview. It's been fantastic.
Yeah.
Thanks,
Well, thank
man.
you, Steve. And
Hey, Joe,
thank you, Drew.
just want to thank you, man. We
man,
knew
thank
it
you
was
guys.
going to be. It was a great interview. Anybody, thank you for coming on the show. Anybody you want to thank? Anybody you want to shout out?
No, dude. Thanks to you guys and everyone out there, who's fighting the good fight with us, dude. It's not lost on Matt Pincus and I doing Trust. That's all of us. You know what I mean? We're all part of this thing, trying to preserve our culture. Whether it's you, Drew, making documentaries about Biohazard, or or Ian McFarlane doing the freaking Agnostic Front doc. It's all worthwhile, and we should all be we all got each other's backs. The older we get, the less of us there are. So the people who are here left, man, we got to hold on tight to our fucking tribe.
Absolutely. And at some point in the future, I'm going to reach out because I'd like to get Matt on the show at some point.
He would do it in a set. He would love to. His schedule's a little bit more stringent than mine, but we'll get it for you.
Yeah, but the show's booked 4 weeks in advance. So, excuse me, 8 weeks in advance. So there you go. Thanks, Joe. I'll talk to you soon.
Thank you guys,
man.
dude.
Thanks, Joe.
Appreciate you.
Take care.
See you, Steven.
Woo! There you go.
That was great.
It was great. It's great. I knew it was going to be great. Sometimes I just had a nice calm day, rolling into it, it was, sometimes it's just, I just know it's going to be great. And also I just spent a day with the guy. So, so it was great. Hey, I want to remind anybody out there that Bridge 9 Records tomorrow is dropping the Incendiary Device curated playlist. It's something that we put together with input from everybody in the band. As you can see, it is a photo by Stephen Messina. It's basically all our influences, and it runs about 40 minutes. It's going to be up on Spotify tomorrow. It'll be on social media. Check it out. All the bangers that we're talking about, all the stuff that influenced us, like Minor Threat and Bad Brains and Black Flag and Discharge and all that is in this playlist. So that's going public tomorrow. Paul Stone, thank you for hooking it up. Hey, Hazer's Gigs, man. I haven't heard from you in a minute. Yeah, Joe was great. Great guest. It was a great show, man. Great show. What else, Steven? What do you got?
So how many Billy Joel songs did they let you put on the playlist?
I avoided all that sort of we just kept it really boom, 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 boom. I didn't get into Hot Tuna and
The Dead, right.
The Dead and Blind Lemon Curtis and all that. I kept it.
Well, you should do a side trip playlist one of these days.
Well, that's it. I was thinking of that. I want to get this one. We'll get this one out first, and bunch of ID shows about to be announced, and hopefully we're talking about going over and playing our first European show. Looks like this summer, so that's happening. So lots going on, and thank you, Chris. I'm glad you enjoy the album. Anybody else out there, please, if you get a chance, check out the Incendiary Device album. It's streaming for free or whatever on streaming platforms, and Bridge 9's got some really cool merch as well. So there you go. Anybody you want to thank? Anybody you want to shout out?
No, I'm good. I'm not shouting at anybody today. I think just I got nobody to say. So, but I will say this: I ordered. You were talking about how you want as little as possible, and yet I'm on the Bridge 9 website going, wait, they make it in orange too, and they make a splatter version. I'm like, I have to get all of these now. So,
shut up, you freak!
I can't help it. Got to support the team, So
what was the gorilla's name in Planet of the Apes that turns the hose on Taylor?
Oh, was that Marcus? No.
It was.
He was the.
Remember what the fuck was his name?
He worked in the
Anybody out there? What was the jailer gorilla's name in Planet of the Apes that turns the hose on Taylor? God, what was his name? Oh, he had was it Julius?
Julius was the nephew, wasn't he?
Okay.
He was. I think it was
He
Marcus. I think it was Marcus.
He had my grandfather's name. Like my grandfather's name was Irving. No, it wasn't Virgil. I don't think it was Virgil.
No, Virgil was Paul Williams.
Yeah, Virgil was later on. Paul Williams.
Yeah, no.
It wasn't Dr. Zayas. Now, come on. We're trying to go big here.
I think it was Marcus.
Really?
I think it was Marcus. Wasn't he the same one that went, human see, human do?
Yeah, right. I'm looking up.
One of our earliest, the Planet of the Apes episode. That was a classic.
Yeah.
Our first flagged episode.
Yeah, I can't find it. It's not giving me anything. Oh, the 8 prison clip. That was so great. Turns the hose on him. Yeah. All right, man. Let's get it on. Let's go get something to eat. I'll talk to you soon.
You got it.
Well, thanks, everybody. Great show today. It wasn't Felton. Stop. That said, hey, covered a lot of ground. 1 week from today's Johnny Santos. Lots going on. Thanks, everybody. Until we cross paths next, my friends. Oh, you know what? I want to shout out Joe Nelson. I want to shout out Nancy Burrill, Al Burrill, Jamie Sharappa, Chris Foley, Dave Spring. All of them. Big part of my growing up. Thank you so much for making it all happen. Talk to you guys soon. Until then, do good things and good things will come to you.